This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. All right, so we're going to call the meeting to order at 4:18 of the Harwich Cultural Council. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law GLC 30A, Section 20, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Harwich Cultural Council is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. So we're first going to move into any announcements because we really don't have public comments. Does anybody have any announcements that they need to make? All right, so we're going to move into approval of December 10th, 2020 minutes. Everybody received a copy in their packet. May I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Charlie. And Peter seconded. So Charlie made the motion, Peter seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote to accept, starting with Charlie.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Dinah.
Aye.
Chris. Aye. Bernadette.
Aye.
Sharon.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So those minutes will be approved unanimously, and they will go over to the town website. Thank you. Moving into old business. So we do need to just do a quick status of our 2020 grant recipients. I do have an update actually, and I don't know Charlie or Dinah, if either of you, because we still have, I think it's 9 outstanding. Let me just do a quick check on that. I think it's 9. 9. But I have an update on one of mine. Do either of you have an update?
Nothing.
All right, so nothing from Charlie. Dinah, go ahead.
Well, you and I both received an email from Danielle Levine. Right? Do you have that listed?
I do. Yep.
Okay, and that was a request for a change.
Exactly.
So, okay.
Yep.
So that's,
and she's just getting her dates. I think she was just updating us on what, because she's going to do virtual, which we talked about last time.
That's exactly right.
Yep. And so she'll get back. So her project is going on. It's just she's waiting for a couple of dates.
Yep.
I told her that was fine, as long as everything was done and completed by the extension that we agreed on. So we're good there.
Right.
I do, however, have an update. Young Women's Soul Collage Group. That one is going to be canceled. And I got word yesterday that this was one that Lorinda was going to facilitate. Yes. Lorinda has moved to Maine and is unable to do the workshop, not even virtually. They do not have another facilitator, so they're going to forego.
Okay, how much was that for?
And that was for $250. And Chris, if you could do me a huge favor, and maybe I can try to pull it up. I sent the email with those proposed numbers to the group, and I can pull it up too. But that was for $250. And so the email that I sent to everybody, and let me just pull this up real quickly, unless somebody else can get to it before I can. Because I had given everybody, let me just pull this up. So what we're going to do is that's $250 that will stay in the pot that we can use toward this next cycle. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yep.
All right. So they are going to cancel, unfortunately, because there's just no way they can make it work. They don't have a backup facilitator, so it's, so that's it's $250. So let me just pull up. Let's see where that email was. And I apologize. I had all of this pulled up earlier and then had to scramble a little bit with trying to get us all in here. So Tina, if somebody has that email in front of them where I proposed with 3 numbers.
Tina.
Yep.
Are you listening?
Yep.
I have on my old sheet of 2020, The Sacred Art of Grieving. Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's actually, that one was denied. We did not do that one.
Okay.
This one is, it's number, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Number 6 on your list, going down. It's the Young Women's Soul Collage Group.
Okay, I have $450 on that amount requested.
Yeah, that was the request. That's what the request was, but we approved 250. So if you look at your first column, it shows 450. So that was their request. And the second column shows 250, which is what we granted.
Okay, Tina, I do have the document, the financial email.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Can you give me, Dinah, if you've got it in front of you, the number, the first number, I think it was 4,000 something?
Well, okay. No, it says the amount we closed on June 30th was $9,764.50.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, so that's not the, okay, I apologize.
And
It's
then,
the last, yep. Go ahead.
And then it says you've submitted grant requests totaling $2,580 with a town allocation of $3,900 being added shortly after the September 28th annual town meeting. According to my records, the 1130 total in Fund 1501 should be 11,084.
Okay. And Dinah, I don't mean to interrupt. So that and thank you for that, but that's not the email that I was looking for. Okay. The one that I'm looking for is that I sent to everyone. Oh, here we go. Is this it? Let me just make sure. Nope, that is not it. It's one that I sent to everybody with 3 numbers. The number that we know for sure, the number that we're expecting. Does anybody remember this email?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, I remember it, but
And I had it up, but then I closed out my emails, and for some reason it's not coming up in my search because I was trying to scramble and text people.
Is it the one that says we expect 4,900? The town has already given us 3,900.
Thank you. Yes.
And we also have, yeah.
Yep, wonderful. Okay.
Oh, there it is, state allocations.
Okay. So,
what we know for sure, you said 40/20. This includes the town allocation of 3,900 plus the 120 after encumbered funds.
Perfect. Thank you, Sharon. And that's exactly what I was looking for. So
okay,
I'm going to need someone, either Chris, maybe Chris, if you could kind of be my little calculator. Do you have your something? So if you take 4,020, which is what we know for sure, and we're going to add, I mean, I can do this by hand, but I also want to have somebody backing me up. Add 250, because that's going to stay in the account. So that brings us up to 4,270, if I am correct.
Right.
All right. So thank you, Sharon. If you could keep that email open real quickly, because I'm like, I closed it out and it's not coming back up in my search for some reason. But all right, so 4,270 is what we know for sure. All right. So that's our first number. So everybody can write that down. $4,270 is what we have for sure. Now the second number, and Sharon, if you don't mind reading me the second number, which assumes the 4,900 of the allocation from the state.
right. It was going to be 8920.
All right, so 8920, and let's add 250 to that. And that brings us to 9170, if I'm adding correctly. Okay.
Yep.
All right. And this is and just so everybody knows, we're now into the current financial report account balances. So this is kind of what I'm trying to do here. So, all right. So, and let me just give you very quickly an update. I spoke to Ricky earlier today. They are meeting tomorrow to confirm their allocations. So we're just one day off. And it appears that the 4,900 is going to be the allocation, but it's still not a definite. So I think as we discuss things today, I'm going to just suggest that we can work within 9170, but let's also understand that that will not be confirmed until I hear from Ricky at some point tomorrow afternoon. Okay? All right, so that's 9170. So Sharon, if you don't mind, moving to the third column, and there was another number that I gave with a, and we're going to have a conversation, but go ahead.
It was 10,000.
All right, so that was 10,000 even, and that included what from the
It
grant?
said this includes 1080 from our gift account.
Okay. All right, so here's what I'm going to just suggest there, just for everybody to have some numbers, and we're going to make a decision on this in just a minute. But let's, in that third number, if we said 10,000, just write it down for right now. If we said 10,000, so the 1080 from the gift account, let's subtract 250 from the 1080, because now we've got 250 back in our account. So that is, Chris, is that 830?
Yes.
Okay. So that assumes, just that proposal assumes that that's 830 from the gift account. Is everybody kind of following my numbers here?
No.
Donna, you're not? Okay. Anybody, anybody else not following? All right.
I'll take your
So
word.
Dinah. Oh, go ahead, Peter.
No, I say I'll take your word for it. I don't think
Oh.
I got that email. I've been searching my email account, so.
I had it pulled up right as I was all ready for this meeting, and then I
It was
closed
on
it out and tried to- yeah.
December 30th. December
Thank you.
30th. Yeah.
Thank you. December 30th. So if everybody
right.
wants to
So-
just take a minute to open up their email.
Okay. Hold on.
Yeah, I see it was attached to the panel book. Thank you.
Yeah,
So
it
the
was.
subject, the subject line is Harwich Cultural Council panel book.
Yeah.
So when we
okay.
got the panel book from the state,
Yep. Got it.
so if everybody wants to just take a minute and pull that up, that's
Mhm.
fine. If you want to just take a minute. So it was dated December 30th. And the subject line is Harwich Cultural Council panel book. So that's the email that had the attachment. And then if you scroll down, there was a report there with the numbers.
It
Okay.
was underneath the dotted line.
Yep.
All right. Okay. And just making sure everybody's on the same page here before I move on. And Dinah, do you have
Yep.
that?
Yep. Got it now.
Okay.
Mhm.
And Peter, were you able to get it?
I'm working on it. These threads disappear.
Yeah, I know.
That's why I just go into the search and I search Tina Games, and then I find everything she sends us.
I'll see what I can do
that's
in that
good.
regard.
That's good. Yeah, I couldn't remember the subject line, Sharon. I was like, that's
Yeah.
what I was trying to
I
figure out.
just
What
went
the
through
subject
all,
line
yeah.
was. Yeah.
I went all the way through until I found
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So while Peter is looking, let me just review what we just talked about. So we had $250 that is going back into our account because that was a canceled grant as of yesterday. So in the first column, what we know for sure includes $3,900 from the town, which we were awarded back in September 28th. So that's what the town allocation is. In addition to the $3,900, it also includes $120 that was kind of left over in that main account, plus the $250. Is that making sense to everybody?
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, so that totals $4,270. That's what we know for sure right this minute. The second number assumes that we're getting the $4,900 allocation from the state. I will not know that for certain until tomorrow afternoon when Ricky calls me. So assuming that that happens, what that does is it takes the $4,270 that we know for sure, it adds the $4,900 to it, and it brings it to $9,170. Then the third number, and this was just me throwing out a number. The third number, just playing with numbers, was if we were to say, we're going to do 10,000, let's just say that, then that we would have to pull money over from the gift account, which actually
Right.
ends up being less than what I proposed because of the 250. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right, so we're all on the same page. Everybody good?
Yep.
All right, so that's the current financial, those are the balances. So we talked about the two balances, and then we talked about a proposal on the third. All right, so now we're going to move into new business. For the 2021 grant allocation discussion decision. So here we are with those three numbers in front of you. Now, the third number, it was my hypothetical. That is not a given. That was just me throwing out a number. So I'm going to ask the group. I'm going to ask you two questions. So the first question is everyone in agreement? So we've got 4270 for sure. With the second number of 9170, I'm just going to ask you this right now. Are you comfortable with us looking at grants, perhaps? And Charlie, I'm going to really depend on you to help me out today. Maybe running 2 columns.
Okay.
Are you comfortable with us going ahead and discussing some of these with the thought that we're going to have $4,900 at the end of the day tomorrow?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Looks like I have a consensus. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So now this moves us to the third number. Considering the grants that have come in, we have 25. And Charlie, do you have the total requested in front of you? If we looked at all of the 25 grants, what was the total?
I do. I have it.
Okay.
Yeah. 15022.
15.
Say that one more time.
That was the column of the 25 that were proposed?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, 1522.
Okay.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, Charlie, said that one more time.
It's $15,022.
Okay, $15,022. Okay. So here's what we typically do. We look at that total amount. And we had a lot of smaller grants come in this year. Sometimes we have some really big grant amounts. So hypothetically, if we awarded every single grant application, we would be looking at $15,022.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's very, very rare that we've ever funded everybody exactly. And I don't even know that we have enough to even do that. So I think so let's talk about what amount do we feel comfortable allocating this year based on the 25 grants you've seen. We could look at 10,000, we could look at 9,000. I'm just going to open it up for anybody. Just raise your hand if you've been thinking about this, and what are your thoughts?
Tina, you said potentially we have 10,000 if we go into the gift account. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep. That is correct. And Charlie, with that, it would require us pulling $830 from the gift account. And again, that's assuming that $4,900 is coming to us tomorrow afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
That's assuming. And let's just hypothetically say this. Let's just, worst case scenario. Let's just say for whatever reason, Mass Cultural Council, we get a little bit less than $4,900. What that would mean is we could still agree today to grant 10,000. It just might mean that we have to make up the difference from what the state does out of our gift account.
Mm-hmm.
Dinah?
Yes, I would propose that we decide on 10,000. It's a nice round number, and I think it's a reasonable amount, and I think we could easily spend $830 from our gift account. I think people need the money this year in particular, and we should do it.
Okay, thank you. So are you making a motion?
I will make that a motion.
All right, could I have a second? All right, and Charlie has seconded. Any discussion? All right, so the proposal on the table is that we're going to grant $10,000 for FY21 grants. Charlie has seconded the motion. We'll go around the room, either aye or nay. Charlie?
Aye.
Okay, Peter?
Aye.
Dinah?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Bernadette? Aye or no? This is to approve $10,000 grant allocation. Bernadette?
You blanked out, so I didn't know who you were calling. Aye.
Oh, okay, sorry. Aye. Okay, Sharon?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So we are approving for the minutes. We are going to allocate $10,000 in grant awards for 2021. All righty. Now we move into the fun part of grant application discussion. So everyone got a copy of the panel book, and I asked each of you individually to take this on your own and just review all of the grant applications, make your own notes, because we're going to run through each application And Charlie, this is where I'm going to have you help me, okay? Because I'm going to kind of facilitate and make sure we're having discussion. And what I'm going to have you do, Charlie, is we're going to start at the very top. So if everybody could open up their panel books or whatever notes you have on the spreadsheet if you're using Charlie's, we're going to go down the list one by one, and we're going to just have a conversation. And based on what you've read, I'm going to open up the floor for you to make your comments and any suggestions you have as far as granting X amount of dollars to that applicant. So Charlie, are you good?
I wanted people to be aware that for some reason I got these all in backwards. So you'd have to start at the bottom of the panel book and work your way back.
Actually,
in terms of the order, I believe.
No, I think you got them in the right order, Charlie.
I'll go the right way.
Yeah, no, you got them in the right way.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. So Charlie, what I'm going to ask you to do, if you don't mind, I'm just going to call, what I did is I printed out, just so everybody knows the page I'm working from, the very last page of the panel book.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to call them in order based on the last page.
Fair
and
enough.
As we're talking about this, there's a blank, there's the amount requested and the grant amount that we decide on. You can go ahead for your own record keeping, put in what we decide. Okay, you might have had your own notes there, and I'm going to ask you to share what they are. I asked you to pencil it in, but once we go permanent, we'll pen these in. So Charlie, you did a really good job of giving us like a 1-sentence or 2-sentence synopsis. So as we go down, I'm just going to ask you to read that. Would you mind?
Sure.
All right, so we're going to start with the first one, which is the Harwich Cranberry Festival. And Charlie, can you read your description?
Yes. This weekly outdoor concert series that began several years ago takes place in the Harwich Cultural Center, the former middle school. Oh, hang on, I'm working with a split screen here.
That's okay.
They have a rain location, the auditorium. Concerts are on Thursday evenings beginning after July 4th and ending before Labor Day. The musical program is designed to end before dark. Guests are invited to bring a picnic dinner, and the gates open well in advance of the music. Beverages are available for purpose. The target is residents of Harwich, ages 13 through 100. Main target audience. Residents of neighboring towns and summer visitors are welcome as well. Tickets have been priced at $15 to $20, and seasonal passes are available at a reduced rate.
Okay, thank you very much, Charlie. So I'm going to open up the floor for any discussion or comment regarding this particular grant. Peter.
I have a question. What are the criteria we're going to use to make these selections? Is it the amount that's available? How much it affects this community? The people that we're looking forward to new on this committee? So I'd like some guidance.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I intended to give that to you, and I slipped. So thank you for bringing me back to that. So here's how we tend to look at this. Number one, the number one question is, what is the public benefit to Harwich? It doesn't always mean that it has to be a massive crowd. It doesn't always have to mean that, but it does have to have some significant benefit. So we certainly don't want a grant that applies to maybe 5 people or maybe 3 people, but it does need to be something of significance. So that's one piece of it. The other piece is that it needs to fall into one of 3 categories. The first would be the arts, which could be performing, music, visual arts, music, any of that. So the arts, or humanities, which is cultural, which is our cultural, our history, that sort of thing, or interpretive sciences. So sometimes we get science-related grants that fall into the category of interpretive sciences.
Tina?
So it has to fall into one of those 3 categories. It does have to have a public benefit to Harwich in some way, serving a significant, population. And we've usually in the past, 20, at least, 20 people, or have something of significance to Harwich. Yeah.
Okay.
Does that help a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of figured that's what it would be, but I thought you might have a protocol in place that you follow.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
If I can offer, Christina suggested that, some of it's wise to look at the budget because some of these, the monies are for payroll and other things, and that was a good tip. I didn't even think of that, but so I put the budget in under the grant utilization purpose comments.
Yep.
So Peter, that should help also sort of amplify what these people are doing and how they're doing it.
Right. And Charlie, thank you. I apologize. I'm a little off my game. So
No.
I appreciate that you brought me back to that because that was the other comment, Peter, and I apologize. Under the projected expenses, so if you go to the budget overview of each grant, another thing we're going to be looking at, they've got proposed numbers. And so sometimes what we do is we look at the amount they're requesting and we look at their proposed numbers. And let's just say right now, hypothetically, we can say, okay, we'll give them $1,000, okay. Or if we don't feel we have $1,000, we can look at their budget and we could say, and this is just me throwing out an example, we could say, marketing and promotion, $500. I think we could help with that. So we could talk about giving them $500. So a lot of times we're looking at the numbers. Number one, can we fund the full grant? If we can't, what part do we want to fund and what is our reasoning for it? In this case, say $500. We're going to look and say marketing promotion, we can help with that. We'll give them $500. So hopefully that helps. Does that help, Peter?
Yeah.
Okay, Dinah?
Yes, I wanted to say, I think another part of the process here really is thinking about a balance of what kinds of things we're funding in terms of age groups that are served and particular disciplines. For instance, we would not want to give out our whole $10,000 on just the humanities if there are other things. So it's really a sort of a back and forth process. I think a very useful way to do it is to go through and do a rough cut first of everything, thinking, well, we might want to give more to this depending on how we come out at the bottom line. And say we start with 800 for the Harwich Cranberry Festival, just for an example. But we know that if there's more money left over, we think it's a worthy thing. So we would come back and say, do we have $200 more at the end of the day that we could apply to that, or is there something else that is more worthy? So I think all of these things are sort of operating in my head as I'm looking at these applications and thinking what's really in the best benefit for Harwich in terms of broad appeal too. So I think that's another factor that needs to be weighed.
Wonderful. Can I say, I'm so excited, Charlie, Dinah, everybody. This is going to be in such good hands after I leave. You all are really stepping up, and because I'm like, this is great. You're filling in all these holes. All wonderful advice, and thank you, Dinah, for that too, because we definitely want to balance it out in those three categories and age groups. Like, we don't want to give everything to the seniors in one year and everything to the students the next year. So we want to make sure, like, we really want to look and make sure we're serving diverse audiences as well. So perfect. Let me say, I'm going to sidetrack 1 minute because it occurred to me, Caleb, if you're listening to me, since there was a ball drop in the scheduling, we're going to be on here for a while. This is not our typical hour-and-a-half meeting, and I want to make sure you're aware of that. So if you can stick with us or do whatever you need to do, we might be on here tonight until about 7 or 8, and I don't want you getting stuck with that if you're not aware of it. So I have to say that. It just kind of popped in my head. All right, so moving on. Any other questions? Peter, thank you for raising the question. Any other questions about reviewing the grants? And then we'll go back to the Cranberry Festival. All right, so for the Cranberry Festival, anybody have thoughts or a proposal? Chris?
I'm thinking that you're right. If we can start out with the 500 for the Cranberry Festival, I don't see that they asked for a grant last year, just from my own information. So this is a new grant. So $500 right now, and then we can revisit it after we're done.
Right. I think that's a good proposal. Also, too, for the new folks, we're not going to vote each one of these. We're just going to have kind of a consensus, and we'll jot down a number and keep flowing. And as Chris said,
And then you can go back around.
Yeah, when we get to the bottom, we'll kind of balance it out a little bit. So thank you, Chris. $500. How does everybody feel about that?
Good starting point.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to put $500 for the first one. And we'll just keep moving down. And Charlie and Chris, if I could depend on both of you to kind of keep a running total. Charlie, I don't know if you've got 10,000 in your spreadsheet. If you do, hopefully it will be deducting as we move down. And if both of you could help us stay on track. All right, so the next one is, and I'm just going to read it as it's listed, Natural Death Care Collaborative. And Charlie has it on his spreadsheet as making art while grieving death. Charlie, do you have a quick description? And I think we all have it in front of us if you can't access it, because we're all looking at it. Does everybody have it in front of them?
Yep.
All right. Oh, Charlie, you're on mute. I'm sorry, you're giving us a great description and we can't even hear you.
All right, but I'm back with you now.
Okay.
Art making has long helped humans reckon with death and is even more vital in current times. Our two-part program addresses cultural, artistic, and practical responses to mortality and loss. Part 1 will be a 2-hour interactive Zoom session entitled Art as Rituals Surrounding Death. We will explore art making as a means to grieve and commemorate our losses, using examples from death care practices that allow for creative expression. Using visuals and video, we will share experiences of ordinary folks uniquely adorning the vigil spaces and vessels of their departed loved ones. Part 2 will be a hands-on workshop entitled Decorating a Vessel for Death Reflection, Preparation, or Commemoration, using a symbolic coffin as a focal point and container to represent loss. Participants will create a personal keepsake decorated with media such as paint, photos, fabric, and decoupage. The target audience is open to all mortals in the community without discrimination, but content is targeted towards adults and older teenagers. Participants younger than 15 must be accompanied by an adult. They can accommodate up to 97 for part 1 and up to 20 for part 2. The cost of participation would be, part 1 is free, but part 2 is $10 per person, supply fee, and option to purchase a box or bring one's own.
All right, thank you, Charlie. So I think going forward, we'll just try, I think we've all kind of read most of these, but we'll just kind of maybe just look for a quick synopsis, just to sometime just refresh our memory. But thank you for that, Charlie. That way we don't spend too much time. I don't want to make you have to read.
No, right. I just cut and pasted these, but I didn't want to take the liberty of, cutting them down. So.
Oh, sure. No, I understand. Thank you. Any thoughts, comments about this one or questions? Chris?
My thought is, it says 97 it will accommodate, and that's for the Zoom. And then the second part, I gleaned from that information more about salaries. My question to you, since you have it up, Charlie, is it $480 the entire amount of their
Request?
request?
Yes,
Yes.
that's what I have.
480
No,
the entire
680.
amount of their, okay, 680. So
Yeah,
it's not,
Oh, they're asking from us 480.
right.
Right. And their whole budget is 680. What they're asking is for us is to pay the stipends. There's another 200 in there for supplies. 200. Yep. So any thoughts on this one?
Who are they partnering with?
Anyone who's grieving.
What?
Who are
Excuse
they
me?
There's a
partnering with?
whole,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
mean-
on page, all right, so if everybody is in their panel book, it's on page 4 of their application.
right.
If you get into their application, there's a whole list of partners. If you go down on page 4, you'll
Right,
see a full
I
list.
saw that. I'm talking about in Harwich.
Yeah,
How do-
and that was my question. Yep, thank you,
How do we
Donna.
know,
Mhm.
how do we know that they will be able to be successful at reaching an audience in Harwich? That's
Yep.
what I'm talking about, a local collaborator.
Yep,
Yeah,
I would agree.
A huge list of people, but that is not about Harwich.
right.
I would agree. Does
Yep.
everybody else feel that same way? Because that was my question also.
Yeah,
Bernadette?
yeah, and I had made, admittedly, this was my first time with all of this, and it was only the second grant that I read, and I feel like I got better as I went along, but I had made a note that the first part seems far too long and not interactive. So, you know, you're telling us you're going to do a Zoom thing, but, you know, we're just paying your stipend to do a Zoom thing that I don't think is engaging. And then you're limiting the second part to only
Right.
20 participants. You're charging these grieving people, even though you're also charging for materials. And like Dinah said, you're not telling me who in Harwich. You're not saying that you've
Right.
reached out to Pilgrim Church and they're going to let you use the hall
Right.
and you're going to hold it there and that you're going to specifically promote it in this area. It was kind of got too generic and general.
Yep.
Yep.
I have no problem with the whole Death Cafe idea at all, but
Yep.
They didn't ask for any other grants from any other sources.
no.
Yep. I didn't see that either. So hearing so far the comments, are you comfortable in this moment putting a 0 here?
Yeah, could we table
Yes.
it and just
Yeah.
set it aside?
Table them exactly how I
I
feel
would
now.
say table it, but table it with a 0. We can come back
Okay.
to it,
Yes.
Sharon. Just to table
Right.
it with a 0, and we can, what we'll do is when we finish, we'll go back and look at some of the
Okay.
zeros.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the next one on the thing is Kristen Stewart, but it's the Makers Club. No, I'm sorry, not the Makers Club. I'm sorry, Cold Frame Theater
Cold Frame
Outdoor
Theater.
Screen Production. Charlie,
Oh.
do you have, and everybody's
Coming up.
got just a very short synopsis, just because anybody that's watching this is not going to have access to the panel book. So for just public, for any of the public that might be watching this, if you just have a 2-sentence synopsis.
But I will say that they had a unique vision here, but at any rate, their vision is to use the extensive outdoor campus of what used to be the herbal farm on Long Pond Road and take their audience on a physical as well as a theatrical journey. Okay, they stage the production at various sites throughout their campus, which I think is kind of unique. But it is a theatrical, and I'm not sure what their production is all about, so.
Okay.
All right,
I have-
comment, Donna?
Yeah, I have something to say about that.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, it is actually, it's a great idea. I like the idea. It's not unique at all because many, many people are doing these kinds of things these days, even before COVID. So I think it's particularly well suited to COVID. The thing that concerns me about this particular application is that they did not put any thematic description in at all. It is just simply, they're going to be taking people on a wonderful journey outside. And their main focus in their application seems to be about having people connect through theater in, community and how hard it's been for us. That seemed exceedingly vague to me and not specific in terms of what is the show? What are they doing? What is it that they're actually going to be presenting? And I think that strikes me as not thoroughly thought through. So
Yeah.
that was my reaction to it as a theater person. That's my
Thank
take.
Okay, go ahead, Chris, and then Sharon. Go ahead, Chris.
The other thing I gleaned from this is it says it serves 300. It's outdoors, so then their ask for 500 is for salaries or supplies, but they're also having a ticket sale, selling tickets for this. So it's, like you say, it's vague of what they're doing and all these asks.
Okay, thank you. Sharon?
This is my friend Kristen, longtime friend in book club, and I told her to apply for the grant because she was interested in it. They put on a outdoor production this fall.
Yep.
They did a outdoor one. She's heavily involved in the theater for many, many years. The campus she's talking about is through her work campus, which is newly acquired land for her, the breastfeeding group here on Cape Cod. So I believe you're getting that as a discount of using that property. I just texted her to see what the theme was. You know, that's asking a lot of people to decide on the theme of a play when they're not sure they're getting the grant. Like, I too am not sure like what the ticket sales, like why they need this amount of money if they're doing ticket sales, but the other one that we just granted for the Cranberry Fest is doing ticket sales as well.
So Sharon, let me just address that and then I'll call on Bernadette.
Okay.
Ticket sales, sometimes when we look at ticket sales, I guess the question is, do the ticket sales offset some of the expenses? So in other words, we don't want to give grant money only to have whatever the grant money might take care of taken through ticket sales, because then where's the money going? Like in the
then
case
they're profiting.
Right. Yeah. In the case of and this is the thing, this isn't, because these are nonprofit, it isn't about profit. It's about covering some expenses. So I think that's, when we're looking at ticket sales, that's something we always have to take into consideration. Yeah.
Okay.
And let me also take this moment because whenever we have a connection to somebody applying for a grant, and Sharon, what you offered was helpful. And at the same time, we all want to be very careful that, I mean, we can make an argument for certain grants, but we also want to make sure that if we have a personal interest, which I don't think you do, Sharon, I just think it's somebody that you know, but if we have a personal interest in the outcome of one of these grants, we have to recuse ourselves. Just let me make that clear.
Yeah.
All right, but thank you for that additional information. Bernadette?
One of the things I think I remember is that what's unique this year is the Mass Cultural Council did say that because the arts as an industry is struggling, and I had to keep reminding myself of this as I looked at the grants, that it might be okay to give people money for stipends or salaries this year. That being said, and I will also say that I was acquainted with Kristen and Jen Pina through the Harwich Junior Theater, where I taught and worked years ago. I'm aware that they did the production of Everyman up at the Arts Center. And yet I am inclined to think of what Dinah pointed out, that they, you know, my notes were, it's local, it's interactive, it's a known reputation of the producers, it's a safe experience. However, what is the experience? I don't agree that you couldn't have had an idea of what your production is going to be.
Well, she said to me that they hadn't decided on a piece yet, but they were leaning towards Much Ado About Nothing, something light and fun, not something dark.
Okay, but when they wrote the grant, that's what they should have put in there. And anybody who's ever written a grant knows that sometimes you don't get the grant just because of flaws in the way you wrote the grant. And I am sorry to say that I think, and it hurts me to say this, but I think this is a big flaw in this grant, that it is too vague. You could definitely have talked about, if you have this idea, especially if you're going to try to create this sort of, it makes me think of like the haunted house tour kinds of things, if it's going to be, or a movable dinner thing, and it's a great, exciting idea, but you have to be thinking, or you should have been thinking about what piece could work. Absolutely, Shakespeare works could work. And they just didn't indicate. It's just very amorphous.
Thank you. Anybody else on this one? And again, realizing we have a lot of new folks on the council this year, and I think it's a really good learning experience, and for anybody that might be watching this later on that's thinking about applying for a grant, I think what we're talking about here, and this really happens with any grant that you write, you do have to have a clear proposal. It's like a business proposal or a book proposal. The concept has to be very clear. You have to be committed to it. So it's not, I'm going to write this, and if I get it, great, and if I don't, whatever. But that's sometimes we look to see, so if we say no to this, is it still happening? If it's not going to happen, then that's kind of a red flag, you know. So I think what we're talking about here is really helpful for anybody that might watch this later on and thinking about applying for a grant. Clarity. So with all of what we've said, do we want to, for now, and we can table this and come back to it, or do you want to give it an amount? Do you want to give it a 0? Because we need to put something in there so that Charlie and Chris, who are running numbers for us, we have to put something in there for right now. We can always come back and change our minds later.
If their amount is for 500 for salaries and 500 for ticket sales, and they're asking for 500, if we give 250 and then their ticket sales come in for 500, they probably can still hold their program, just, you know, trim it a little bit or whatever. So I'd like to put in 250 for that slot and, you know, revisit it.
Okay.
Potentially, yeah.
And to be honest, I don't think she understood how to write that, because I said, what are the ticket sales covering? And she said production costs, and if there's anything left, a small stipend. So I don't think she understood how to write the numbers down on there.
But again, but she also didn't put marketing. So, you know, there's other expenses that she just, so.
And realistically, you don't really usually start texting grantees to ask them to redress their issues.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you were asking clarification, so I asked clarification.
And that's okay, everybody. It's, again, I know we got new folks at the table. New folks are at the table, and I understand, but Bernadette is making a very good point that because otherwise we got to start texting.
Everybody doesn't have that opportunity. We don't have text or a way to ask everybody.
But we've got new people at the table, so I want to be mindful of that. But yes, it's a learning experience, and we do have to treat everybody equally. But Chris has made a suggestion or a proposal. How does everybody feel about $250 for right now?
Yes. As a working figure? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we're going to put 250. Let's put 250, and then we're going to move to the next one, which is the dot-to-dot art workshop. And I know I don't know, Charlie, we've all got, has everybody got it in front? And I know we've all kind of done our reading. We may not need Charlie to give us it. Well, I don't know. I kind of was wanting, because we're videotaping here, that I just, for the public, just like a 1 sentence or 2 sentence. This is the Makers Club. This is for young kids 11 to 14 looking for an opportunity for social connection in the Makers Club. Charlie, between you and I, we can get just a quick 1 or 2 synopsis. This is visual arts dot-to-dot workshop. It's going to be held at a studio in Harwich Port. So this clearly has a Harwich connection. Any comments on this one?
It's a diverse range of mediums. It looks like the proposal just brings young people together who are looking for social connection.
Through the arts.
I was curious because they're paying for the rental space, though.
Right.
It's $750 for the rental space. So that's not, even though it's connected to Harwich space, it's expensive.
Yeah, and charging the students. It's not a free
$25 per student.
Per session.
Right.
Yep. Okay. Good points. Good points. What about, if you look at the budget, there's a $300 for supplies. So a thought could be, if we decided, we could look at a possible $300 towards supplies. But anybody?
Yep.
It sounds like the supplies are really crucial to the program.
Yes.
Especially if
Yes.
it's going to be virtual, they'll hand them out and they'll do it.
Right.
So I think supplies are a reasonable way of contributing to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's everybody feel? 300,
I like
Dinah?
the idea. I like the
Sure.
idea of
Yeah.
contributing to it, and I like the specificity of the application. The money is a little bit funny, but I think if we break it down, to what were you suggesting, 300, Peter?
Yeah, 300.
I think for the supplies, I mean,
Right.
that'll be.
I like that proposal. I think that makes sense to me.
All right. So everybody in consensus, 300 towards supplies.
Yep.
All right. Okay, wonderful. Let's move next to the Cape Cod Theater Company, Harwich Junior Theater. This one is, the request is for $2,000. This is clearly our neighborhood theater. And it's for a series of, Charlie, unless you've got a 1 or 2 sentence, it's for a.
Well, no, I think that middle, or the second paragraph kind of encapsulates everything. They want to produce 5 short plays and make them available through their website to family, schools, boys and girls clubs. It'd be recorded, performed and recorded on Zoom. It is our local theater.
Any thoughts about this one?
Yeah,
Bernadette?
I love the project. I think the project looks like a really, really worthy project. I think it's just a matter of how much money that we think that we could give to it. It seems to me like a very, very strong proposal, and excellent benefit in terms of, all of the Black Lives Matter issues and the diversity that people are trying to achieve, particularly in primarily white communities. And I think it's a really great thing to support. The question,
and I think historically, I think the Harwich Junior Theater has contributed more to theater in this area than most theaters anywhere, based on its alumni.
And everybody, if we just so we can all keep track of the conversation, if you could just raise your hand and I'll call on you. That way we're not speaking over each other. Bernadette had her hand up. So Bernadette, I'm gonna come to you, and Dinah, I'll come back to you. Bernadette?
Thank you.
I just wanted to finish what I was saying.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dinah, and then Bernadette will come back to you. Go ahead, Dinah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it was, I think 2,000 is a lot, is what I wanted to say, for the amount of money that we have to give. And they also have another application as well in this cycle. So I think we want to keep that in mind. That's all I had to say about it.
Thank you, Dinah. Bernadette?
Well, when I first raised my hand, that's exactly what I was going to say, is it only pains me because it's such a large ask. It's not that it's not worthwhile. And I did make the note that the money is to pay stipends to BIPOC performers and directors, and that it's going to be free online access to everyone. So I definitely would like to see us help support it, but certainly with 25 grants and at best $10,000, it would be a lot to make that huge an award. We can't, I don't think we could fund the whole thing.
I thank you. Chris?
The thing that I noted too is that they didn't ask for any other council to contribute, that we were the only ones asked. So it puts a burden on us at that point to give the whole amount. Salaries, marketing.
Yeah, thank you for that. My comment on this, and again, I'm saying this because we are, this is a public meeting, is I would question and wonder, I personally would have recommended that they submitted to Dennis, which is right where they're located, right on the line. They probably could have reached over to Chatham as well, and maybe between the 3 councils, they could have, we could have funded this project. So I'm just going to say that for anybody listening to the public, because I think when you're a grant applicant, you kind of have to think a little bit bigger and not put all of everything on just one council. Having said that, I'm going to throw out a very bold number here, and then we can have a discussion. It is our neighborhood theater. I agree that it's a very worthy project, and I'm going to throw out a pretty bold number here, and that's going to be $1,000.
Oh, geez, mine was higher.
I thought she was going to say 1,500. Yep.
I thought 1,500. Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
All right.
because of the points you make about the neighboring area.
Yep. Yep. Dinah, did you have a comment?
I didn't hear what Bernadette just said.
To the point of what Tina had said about, because it's right on the line, and maybe they did reach out, but they were supposed to list it there. It would have made sense.
Yeah, and
you know.
so are you responding to the proposal of 1,000 or 15?
Yeah, no, 1,000 I think is to start, because of where we have a long list to go through.
Yep.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right, consensus for 1,000?
Might as well.
All right, so let's put 1,000. Let's put it that, and again, we'll total this up at the end. We'll see if we're over, we're under. We'll play around with it at the end, because we can always go back and adjust. All right, so 1,000 for that one. The next one is Kirk Whipple, and the name of his project, let's see, is, I'm reading your spreadsheet, Charlie, which came out to be in a very small font. So it's duo, pianist, composers, and educators. Do you have it's a concert, so it looks like it's music. Do you have just a one sentence synopsis by chance?
It's a wild repertoire of works and arrangements for one and or two pianos. And basically it just includes some educational components, but they say it's coordinated with our local cable access station and will take place between March and December.
I would like to know which cable access station they're talking about.
They just said local.
I know, I see it, and I don't see specifics.
There might be more in the panel book.
No, there wasn't.
No.
There wasn't, actually. There was no mention of which station.
Right. And
It'd be Cape Cod Media. Yeah.
They don't know. It doesn't sound like they have already planned to collaborate, and that is something that actually has to happen in order for any things to work. So it's easy enough to say, I want it on cable access, and there's another application in this panel book which is of the same ilk. In fact, it's more problematic in terms of where they're actually planning to have it run. So I think it's not specific. That's a concern I have. I like the idea. It sounds very cool, but it seems like a lot of money, and we're not sure of the benefit for Harwich because of that.
Okay, thank you. Peter, and then Bernadette. Peter?
Yeah, it seems a little wishy-washy. It's one and or two pianos. That got to be a little more specific. It also kind of feels like they put out a broad net looking for funds. It isn't quite all local.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Bernadette?
They couldn't even call out the local station. I mean,
yeah.
Right. Bernadette?
Yeah, Peter's point is well taken. I couldn't help noticing that in a lot of the applications. I would look and see where the person was based. And I do think there are some that are just boilerplate. And again, no disrespect to the artists who are trying to make a living, but they're boilerplate, just going to every single council looking for money. Some of them are much further away. This gentleman's based in Onset, but one of the other, it's a small thing, but not, that bugged me was he kept referring to things being presented by CCC. I had to go digging to find out what CCC was. I mean, you would start out with your topic sentence at the beginning explaining that it's Cranberry Coastal Concerts or whatever it is, and then, CCC throughout the rest of it. But it's something that started, it strikes me that it's something that started way out in Wareham and on the fringe just off the Cape. And so, it goes to Dinah's point about there's no clear connection to what's local here, and especially to who you're going to license it to air it.
mm-hmm.
Exactly. I'm just going to speak real quickly because this has come up a few times here. When a project isn't so specific, in my mind, what that does is if we grant any money toward a project that's not specific, we're taking away from another project. Mm-hmm. So for anybody listening who is writing grants, the more clear you can be on your project and the details you're giving us, increases your chances, because we're kind of taking a gamble with some funds to a project that might happen or it might not, when this one over here could have gotten a little bit more money that we know that's going to take off. So that's just my random comment. Based on what I'm hearing, do we want to put a 0 there for now?
Yes.
I
Does
do.
anybody? 0? All right,
Yes.
so we're going to do a 0.
We can come back, but at the moment,
Yep, we can come back. All right, the next one is Dr. the Machine Jesse Green. And this one was, hold on, I'm trying to read this. Chainsaws, cheeseburgers, and rock and roll. Anybody have a, Peter, go ahead.
I'd give it just on the basis of their name. Come on, somebody's being imaginative. They're putting it out there.
Well, I agree. In these hard times.
Okay, Bernadette.
He's another one who, he's based in Medway, and he's just got them applied for everywhere. He makes his living apparently as a motivational speaker. It would seem like it could be a very entertaining thing in person, and I wonder what Sharon, as a fellow educator, would think about this. I don't think it would translate as dynamically on Zoom. I don't think, speaking as an educator, that we can forecast when we'll have people coming in to do assemblies again in the future for us. I don't think most schools are going to find that it's something they're going to want to devote time to this year, and I don't think they're even going to want to try to be airing it. I'm sorry, I wrote a lot of things here. He's saying 2,000 people online. Is it 2,000 kids? He's saying middle, high school. In our district here in Monomoy, between the middle and the high school, we don't even have 2,000 kids.
Yeah.
What's the length of the show? I don't think schools are really going to jump on something like this right now. We've got more important basic things we're trying to struggle to do with our kids. He doesn't talk about whether it can be recorded to broadcast it at different times to the different classes, or if it's only one live stream. And then I'll just say one more annoying thing to me was, when I look at his promotional stuff, he's got an honorary doctorate from Keene State, and he's billing himself as doctor, and that's just bugging me personally. It's the opposite of the Jill Biden thing, where she is an actual doctor. But as far as the educational value and it being the target, and I just don't know what Sharon thinks about this, but that was how it hit me as an educator.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to Dinah and then Peter. Go ahead, Dinah.
Yeah, I agree completely. I had all the same thoughts, Bernadette. But in addition, the fact that there is no specific school tie-in. He does not cite having talked to Monomoy. It's like, I'm just going to do it. And clearly, that isn't necessarily a great bet, particularly in this time. So I think it's too vague. It's too broad. It sounds like fun, and it does sound like a fun thing in person. And he's got some good supplemental materials, people saying, oh, he did a great job, but that isn't really, that doesn't help us know that it's going to have an impact on our kids in Harwich. So that's my bottom line.
Thank you, Dinah. Thank you, Peter.
Just a side note on that doctor thing, honorary degrees, that's really pushing it. I put 4 years in really hard work at Tufts, and let me tell you, I earned every one of those 3 letters. I don't use them now that I'm retired. The only time I do is making a reservation at a restaurant, and that doesn't happen anymore anyway.
Well, thank you, Dr. Hollis.
So you're welcome. Thank you.
Well, I will just throw in that I think it was Dinah's point, and probably I think Bernadette said it too. I think it was an idea, because it says who is the target audience, any grade level, middle school. I mean, it was too much still in the thought process, and I don't know if this is really happening. You know, and this is the thing, you know, we are tasked with giving away grant money that the town graciously gives to us and the state graciously gives to us. We have a responsibility to give this to people who have a commitment to a project. So if you are kind of wishy-washy and you don't know if you're doing your project or not, it's too risky. And we'd rather give it to somebody that we know is going to get their project done. And that's kind of my say on that. Sharon.
Well, I think he would do it. I know it's vague, but I think he's just like, if you hire him, he'll come and do whatever you want him to do, because he's looking for, you know, a place to go. Yeah, because it looks like all these other places, like, you know, and like Bernadette said, I don't see us having people in our schools for a while. I don't see it translating the same virtually. And yes, it would be entertaining, but is it a connection to our community? I don't think so.
Yeah. And if I could say this real quickly, Sharon, and then Chris, I'll come to you. The other thing, and again, I'm saying this for the benefit of people listening. The other thing is, with what you said, he might do it. When you write a grant proposal, what you can say is you can reach out to Monomoy or Cape Cod Tech or whoever and say, if I can get this grant, would you let me do this? Yeah. And you could put something in writing where the principal signs absolutely. And you can provide that in your grant application. So we know that if we're going to give you this money, you've already talked to this person.
You've got it all set.
It's not like an after the fact.
Right.
So that's something else to think about too. Has this person done their legwork and their homework? And do they have something lined up? If we say yes, it's not like we say yes and then they go check on it.
Right.
So that's another piece of grant decision making. And somebody had their hand up. Chris.
This grant is also an ask for the full amount of a salary, which I'm assuming is his salary. So because it's online, he doesn't necessarily have to connect with a school. He can just put it on Zoom. So then he's got himself $500. So, I mean, I can see that he would get that done. He would certainly be able to do it and then have himself $500 for putting it online.
Yes, and I would probably argue that if he can put it online, but where's it going? I mean, is Monomo going to pick it up and show it to somebody? I mean, he himself can put it online, but who is the audience?
Right.
Where's it going? And I guess that's, for me, who is the end user on this? I don't doubt that he can't do it, but you know.
Yeah.
All right. So with all of this discussion, what do we want to do?
I'd say no.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Zero.
All right. So let's go to 0. Moving to the next one, which is Naomi Steckman, and I have to kind of bounce back and forth between. Is she Beyond the Bounds? And Charlotte, I may have to have you read this because when I printed it, the font was so small. Just the name of her project, which is Beyond the Bounds, a pandemic concert series focused on connection and creative expression. So I've read that one, but going forward, I might just have you read them. All right, so what do we think about this one? So this is music, concert.
Good stream.
What is this one called again?
This one is Beyond the Bounds, a pandemic concert series focused on connection and creative expression. So if you're opening your panel book, which I'm actually reading mine on my phone, if you just scroll, so each one can kind of come after the other, unless you printed it out, which it was 220.
I printed them all out so I can make
it. Good for you.
Yeah.
I wanted to, badly.
I'm old school. I can't do it like that.
That's okay. That's okay. I just scroll on my phone and I have my notes on a different sheet. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thoughts on this one? Anybody had a thought?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, Chris?
This is music, which is great. It's at the Cultural Center, which I think that's the Yarmouth one, which is a great location. And it's going to be streamed because they do video. It's for salaries, and I gleaned that they asked other places for money as well. So they kind of, checked the boxes of my criteria.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
That's a
All right.
great venue over there. Believe it or not,
It
an
is.
old bank lobby has pretty good acoustics. I've been
Oh,
to
yeah.
performances there.
Yes.
Yeah, Bernadette?
I think I made a note that their first one, and I'm assuming they have the commitment with the Cultural Center of Cape Cod. Their first one's supposed to be there, and they had a prospective date of the end of this month. And, you know, I'm just assuming that's not going to happen. That puts a little bug in it, you know.
Does it, I didn't read it, but does it say that it says it's streamed, so it could be virtual?
Yeah. And then my only other question was they have administrative overhead is $250, and I'm just wondering what that means, but.
Yeah.
Dinah?
Yeah, this is one that made me start thinking about how different people do their budgets so differently in these applications. And in some cases, I mean, this is a project that they are pitching to many, many different towns. And Harwich is one of those towns. And the question is, does the money that they're asking for apply to the whole budget or to Harwich part of the benefit? So
Yeah.
you know, that's it's kind of a shifting sands kind of thing. As I look at a lot of these budgets, it's like some of them are looking at the aggregate of everything they're spending, and then they're, you know, narrowing it down and asking us just for a little bit of that because we're just going to get a little portion of the benefit. And then I don't know. This is a little amorphous. I had a hard time wrapping my arms around this one. It sounds like a great concert, and it is a good venue, but I wasn't sure how it was really going to reach Harwich people and how we could assure that in terms of our commitment financially. That's all.
Thank you, Dinah. Chris?
In this, it said a series of, so that was like more than one. Let's see, the concert series will take place during each session of 2021, running for the entire cycle, winter, spring, summer, fall, starting January 31st at 3 p.m. So the other thing is their money's $8,000 for stipend, and then marketing $100, and then total projected expenses $9,750. But they did ask, they've got ticket sales for $6,500. They asked Brewster, Mid-Cape, Orleans, Dennis for monies. So they did spread it out.
So,
yes, they did. But may I just clarify what I was talking about? Could I just clarify something?
Go ahead, Dinah. Yep.
In the application. It's where they say here, who is the target audience for this project? It says the target audience for this project is residents in and neighboring Harwich. Since there will be a stream as well, the hope is to reach a more expansive audience that will include individuals who are unable to attend the concerts in person. Now, I like the fact that they mentioned Harwich, but the fact is that the target audience for the project is huge. It's all of these different towns. So that's what I mean about the sort of the shifting sands. It's hard to keep track of exactly what they're asking for money for. I like the idea of funding music, and I think musicians have been particularly hard hit, and I would like to be able to give them something. So
Bernadette? Thank you, Dinah.
Right. I agree with what Dinah's saying, and they did mention, because Chris is right, it's a series of concerts. One is in a neighboring town's cultural center. They're also saying that Hay Foundation is going to let them do one there. They've got a tentative commitment, they're saying, from the National Seashore. So again, Harwich doesn't specifically factor into it. It's not like they're going to do one of the concerts here. And yet, I agree with you, Dinah, about wanting to do something.
yeah. Yeah.
So I think my comment, which is not answered in this, but again, I'm taking the opportunity, hopefully, that people are listening. When I look at the guest artist and they've asked for $400, one of the things that I find helpful, it's not in this particular grant, but it's something that I would probably ask grant applicants to think about. If you can say, like in the guest artist, I mean, and we'll have one coming up here shortly that I'm going to use as an example of what I'm getting ready to say. If you have, say, guest artists, let's just assume we've got two people here in Harwich that are performers, and maybe they're a part of this show. You know, one could say, well, the guest artist, we'll do 400 because that kind of helps that Harwich group. So, and that's so that's something for anybody listening that as you're writing this, the more specific you can be to Harwich is helpful.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So saying that, one of the what I will throw on the floor, because it sounds like we want to do something, I would say that we could look at the guest artist, or it says $400, and we could, if you feel that's fair, say that we'd be happy to put forth $400 towards the guest artist. I like supporting our artists, and especially if they're from Harwich. I just don't know if they are, but I do like that idea.
I suspect they're not because they did not mention it, but.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
it's giving them the benefit of the doubt, Dinah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Peter.
Can we specify how it is applied? As you say, for an artist. In other words, can we put a string on it?
I mean, we could actually. Yeah. I mean, we could. You know, we.
I mean, we can say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it have to be? I don't think that that's correct. I don't think that we can put strings to it. I think we give them money and they use it, and we make our own mind. I mean, in our own mind, this will be for the guest artist. That's our justification to ourselves, right?
Yeah, thank you, Dinah, because sometimes I think there's a little bit of an echo, so I don't know that I clearly heard what you were saying, Peter, but I thought I heard what you were saying, but Dinah just explained it. Yeah, you're exactly right. We can't say you have to show us exactly. We just have to say that we're going to give you $400 towards blank, and it's up to them, really. It's up to them on how they apply it, but we within ourselves have said we're going to give you, say, $400 towards guest artists.
Okay.
Yeah, but we can't hold them to it. Yes.
I would say there's a large amount of money that they are saying it's going to cost. It's going to cost almost $10,000. They're only asking us for 8, and if we gave them 4, we could feel like we're doing our part to support the the classical musicians, and also you know, hope that Harwich residents would get benefit. So I just didn't look carefully at the marketing. Are they marketing carefully to Harwich? How would we know whether they're getting the word out to us?
The marketing promotion was only $100.
Oh.
Yeah, that was the amount. They've got a lot of names of the artists. We just don't know where they're from. And again, I'm gonna say this, you know, it would be helpful in a grant application for somebody to say this person is the pianist and they're from Harwich. You know, it would. So I think that's helpful in a grant application to get real specific. But I don't see, as far as the promotion bit, it talks about mailing lists, social media. This is mailing lists from the venues being used, advertising. So they have a promotional plan, but it doesn't specifically say to Harwich.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I would propose 400.
All right. How's everybody feel? 400 consensus?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Getting nods. All right. 400 in this cat. All right. So 400. Let's move on to Lucy Gilmore, who absolutely has a Harwich connection.
Oh yeah.
Lucy is somebody that every year, for the history of everybody that's new, Lucy puts in an application every year, and it's the Harwich Early Childhood Advisory Council. So this is clearly a Harwich need. So I'll just preface with that. And Lucy does put an application in every year for a different type of program, and we have historically funded all of them, sometimes in full, sometimes mostly in full. But we've historically given Lucy money for a grant proposal. And it services early, like our preschool kids. So this is an audience that, yeah, I think it's a good audience. Thoughts about this one? $935 though, so it's higher than it usually is. Bernadette.
Yeah, it's a lot, but so I'm not saying fully fund, but everything you said, it's true. There's 11 different programs between Harwich and Chatham in the whole area, 11 different preschools, and she collaborates with Cape Cod Theater Company, which is another Harwich artistic group. So it ticks a whole lot of boxes. I'd be interested in what other people are thinking about how to come to a monetary number, because it does seem like a lot, but it's going to do a lot. It's going to affect a lot of people in the arts in Harwich and children in so many different preschool programs.
Yep, thank you. Dinah?
Yes, I agree. I'm very impressed with this application. I feel like she does a fabulous job. It's an amazing program how much they're able to cover, and it benefits, definitely it is local benefit, and as Bernadette points out, it's also Cape Cod Theater Company, which is another local. But I would be inclined to fully fund this if we can, because I think it is of great benefit to the community, and particularly that age group. I think it's so important. So that's my take on it.
Thank you. Chris?
This does tick the box of kids, which not all of these do. And it says 165 kids. But this fully funds this project with salary. It's $975 for salary, nothing else. The other thing is she did not ask for money from anybody else, which if she's been doing this long enough, she should be asking from other councils as well to bump up her monies. But I would suggest fully funding it.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Sharon, did you have a comment?
I did. I had that concern too, like we're funding somebody's salary for this. So that was just my comment.
Okay, so let me just take this opportunity just real quickly with the salary stipend. My experience has been when people are putting it in the salaries and stipends category, sometimes what that means is they're bringing in, like, this is creative movement. So it might be that, and this is hypothetical in my mind because I don't know for sure, I haven't read it all, anyway, what could happen is that maybe there's somebody at Cape Cod Theater Company. So they're going to bring a puppeteer or something into the program, and that puppeteer might cost X amount of dollars. So it's not technically like a salary per se. So it's not like we're paying their salary. It's just the fee to have a program carried out, if that makes sense. And so when we're talking stipends, that's usually the case, is that you're paying for whatever service for this project to be carried out. So I'm going to agree. Oh, go ahead, Sharon.
No, I'm just saying, like you've said before, like it just doesn't say that in the grant.
Yeah.
So I'd have to assume that.
Yeah. And you make a good point here. It says, all right, so there's where it says, please describe the qualification of key artists, everybody that's involved. It talks about Tamara Harper. So it looks like she has a part in this in some way. So part of that stipend salary, I'm assuming, Sharon, I'm assuming.
Yes.
The way one could read, the way one could read this. And it goes on in that paragraph, it goes on to talk about it looks like what Tamara's going to be bringing to this program. So it appears to me to be funding Tamara, if I said her name correctly. I don't know if it's Tamara or Tamara, but
it's Tammy Harper. Yeah.
Or Tammy, yeah. So it appears to me to be funding Tammy's role in this. which might be separate from Cape Cod Theater Company. I mean, this might be something, when you start looking at some of these things, people get their money from lots of different ways.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
It says it.
Yeah, Bernadette?
It says it under the question about how does the proposed project provide benefit. It says, guiding creative movement in early education centers will nurture joy of self-expression and collaborative play. Having this experience will enrich their future interactions by using techniques taught by the Harwich Theater Company's professional teaching staff. So Tammy or other members of the theater staff are coming into the preschools to do a creative movement workshop with the kids.
Right.
Thank you.
There's also a passage here where it says, how will you adjust the project if the council cannot fund the entire amount you're requesting?
Yep.
It says the Cape Cod Theater Company will seek additional funds from their donors, so each early education program can have an outreach program in their center. Additionally, the Harwich Early Childhood Advisory Council may be able to cover some of the cost. So clearly they're collaborating, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah.
And let me give the historical background. I guess I'm the history person here now. This particular program, Creative Movement, did come in front of our Harwich Cultural Council 3 years ago. I can't remember off the top of my head if we funded it in full, but I can tell you that we funded it. So this is a program that they've done before 3 years ago. So it was successful, and I think it's a good one. And myself, I'm in agreement that if we can fund this in full, I would recommend that we do that.
Yeah.
Is that consensus? Peter?
Yeah. Why don't we go with the full amount, and again, this is one we can come back to and maybe pair a little bit off of something else we feel is more critical.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right.
All right, good. So 935 in this line. And the next one is Creative Outlets Finding Your Voice Through Arts, Cape Cod Music of Art. This is Sharon Leader. This is one that comes in front of the council just about every year that I've been on the council. And we have always funded it in part. I think, what's her amount this year? Because it sometimes varies. It's $300.
300, yeah. And the whole project, 7,000.
Yep, the whole project.
Yeah.
And this is something that comes in front of us every year. It's a fantastic project, and she goes and asks all the councils. And they typically do it over the Museum of Art, but I know this year she had to do some stuff virtually. So I'm going to speak in favor of this. I'm just going to throw it out there. I say we fund it for $300.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question about it.
Yep, go ahead.
I agree. It seems really good, and it's it's something that we're not doing in any other application so far. But how does she get the people from Harwich? How does she recruit people from Harwich?
She actually reaches into the schools, and 2 years ago, when we did our grant reception, she brought 2 students from Harwich who were part of her presentation when we invite. So she specifically had 2 of the Harwich students in this program speak to the benefit.
Okay.
So
this says it will serve 4 teens from Harwich.
Okay.
So I'm just assuming, therefore, that that's a guarantee that she will be able to reach 4 teens. What if she doesn't? What happens?
I can also say, based on past history, this is also targeted to at-risk youth. And in the past, I know at Monomoy, she has reached out to George Sapel. I know they've got somebody different in that program this year, but she works closely with George, or used to. I think they've got somebody else there now, but it's specifically for at-risk youth.
Yes, I'm aware of that, and that's one of the reasons I think it's good. But I'm just wondering what happens if we fund it, and then 300 isn't a lot. If we fund 300, but she only gets 2 teens from Harwich, do we care?
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I look at it as the impact of even 2 kids. If you can change a kid's life, even 2 kids is worth it to me.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right, $300?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so $300.
Mhm.
All right, the next one is Open Mic Classical. And this is the one that I'm going to use as an example. So this is one we have funded every year. I've been on the council. And their lead pianist, and I don't know if she mentions this, because there was one year that we denied her, I think it was my first or second year on the council, and she had to come back and tell us that her pianist was from Harwich. So, and this is classical music, which is rare. I mean, it's not like it's everywhere, but this is a unique program. It's they tend to do their performances over at the First Parish Brewster Church, or the Unitarian Church, but I think last year she did it virtually. And I know that her pianist, who tends to play, she's the accompanist of all these people doing their classical music,
right?
Yeah, I think Anna Glegg, I believe, is the young woman's name.
That's the musician. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just going to put that out there, that this is one that we have funded every year, and it is a unique genre of music.
Mm-hmm. I would recommend 300. That's my.
All right, thank you. Sharon, did you have a comment, Sharon?
Yeah, I was just going to say they're only asking 300, and it says students from Monomoy School District sign up to perform. So.
Yep. It's like an open mic too. So they bring their classical. It is
Yeah.
So 300. Yeah, too. All right, so 300 for this one. So we're moving on to the next one, which is Henry Lappin, if I said that correctly. And the name of his project, I have to kind of scroll down to my next thing unless somebody has it ahead of
Henry
me.
the Juggler.
Juggler performance.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
Juggler.
So anybody want to, we'll open up for Henry the Juggler. Anybody want to have a comment?
Well, again, his ask is for full, it's for salary, and he didn't ask anybody else for monies.
No.
I don't know the location of where he's
Right.
doing things.
Right. Yeah, he's too vague.
Yeah.
Too vague.
Oh, yeah.
Bernadette?
Yeah, he's just depending on the local sponsor to promote this, but he doesn't have a local sponsor. He's from out in Amherst. It's $4.25 for a 1-hour performance.
Yeah.
And he doesn't talk about any confirmed commitment from anyone. It's like the other ones we talked about. And he expects the local sponsor to do all the publicity, but he doesn't have one. And he's not local, so it's not like he just forgot to say, oh yeah, you know.
I couldn't agree more. Yep.
Yep. Sharon?
Well, and he just says like it can be held outdoors. So, I mean, it just
and not be held outdoors too.
Yeah, he just listed so many different things. I was like, he needs a space. Like it just doesn't sound like.
It wasn't specific enough to us.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It wasn't specific enough at all, period.
Okay.
So do we want to have a 0 for this one? And again, we can always come back to these.
Yep.
I would say yes.
Right.
You can always come back.
Yeah, I would say he is someone who might benefit from figuring out how to write a grant.
Yep. And thank you, Dinah.
I'm sure he's good.
Yep.
I'm sure he's really good.
Yep. And this speaks to the importance of our little summer workshop that we've been doing, that we weren't able to do this summer, because we can actually talk to people about how to write these a little bit better.
Yep.
All right. Yep.
Very
All right. The next one is John Root for $100. And John is somebody who comes in front of us every year. We have, for the most part, funded his projects. I think there might have been one that we turned away, and I can't remember off the top of my head.
Last year we did not
Yeah, I
fund
think it was
him.
last year. But it's $100. Anybody have a comment? Bernadette?
And again, no disrespect if he's a known entity to you, but and I know things are different because of COVID, so I marked down that it's a 90-minute PowerPoint presentation, and doing that on Zoom, that 90 minutes seems like a long PowerPoint.
Yeah.
I would think that if this was something that he was usually coming to a community center or a garden club, and he had other elements with him, and it was, if not interactive, a little more varied, that gave me some pause for thought.
Okay, good point. Anybody else? Sharon?
Well, and my question was just like, I guess he'd release it to the towns, he said, but I'm just curious why you couldn't go outside and do it with a small group, like in our town, like to look at our birds and whatnot.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Good
Yeah,
question.
coordinate with the Conservation Commission. I mean, we've got a lot of areas that support tremendous amount of wildlife here in Harwich.
Yep. All right.
And
Anybody else,
that
Dinah?
length of bloom, I mean, that's a long time for that.
Yeah. Dinah?
I think last year we had a bit of this discussion that I'm about to say, which is that it seemed that he did not have proprietary information that would be absolutely essential for people of Harwich. And so it's like, we have lots of nature things here, and as people are talking, you know, we've got our own birds and bees and butterflies, and we have lots of things being offered of that nature, and I'm not sure how this would be of particular value. You know, as Peter was saying, the Harwich Conservation Trust, for instance, you know, offers all kinds of programs of this nature specific to our area. And I think that his is a little far afield. Not that birds and bees and butterflies aren't pretty much the same all over, but maybe that's part of the point.
Yeah. All right, good feedback. So I'm going to say 0 for this one.
Yeah.
Let's move to the next one. Everybody good? All right,
Yes.
so we're going to 0. And the next one is Mary Wilson. Charlie, or anybody, do you have her? Let's see, is hers remote learning song with puppets? I think that's hers.
It is, but she's also coordinating with Paul Kehoe, who's a local educator and musician.
Okay, go ahead. Bernadette?
Can I just ask the rest of the group for clarification? I read through this, and what I got, it sounded great, and then what I think I got out of it, though, in the end, was it was $300 for one song.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's what I read too. Seems inappropriate.
And I don't know if she has a firm. What did I write here in my thing? 500 kids, you know, which it's the entire school district for ours, pre-K to third grade, the target audience. I don't know that we have 500 kids. And I guess I have written here virtually through MSRD. How did they talk to Steve Cass and ask that, you know, I don't know. This one confused me a lot. I started out excited about it, and then
Yeah. I mean, it does read on page 3 of their application, page 3 of 7, it does say we would be partnering, so one could assume that there's already been a conversation. However, again, for the listening audience, it's helpful if you have that agreement already to have something in an email or something that you can show that you've already got this lined up pending funding. Go ahead, Chris.
It says, if yes, where does your project take place? It says after out of school, but it doesn't say what school or.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a good point, Chris, because if it's after school, then I guess my question would be how are you partnering with all these schools, unless he's worked it out that they're going to be putting it in the newsletter. I mean, I guess I'm curious as to what the relationship would be. If it's an after school, then how are all these schools factored in?
Well, it says virtually, so would they have an after school program?
Yep.
No. Why did I read that? I thought it was over February vacation.
you're right. I'm looking back at the top page.
Actually,
now.
yes, you're correct. Thank you, Sharon. This is why we've got 8 eyes on all this, because it, yeah, it is. It's over February vacation. So that's probably what he's worked out, is somehow they have I'm assuming, this is an assumption on my part, that he's worked it out through Monomoy to air the show, but I don't know.
I'm
I'd be curious
surprised he's
as to
not
how.
doing it through the library, because like that's
Yeah.
in my sense what it's taking the place of. Because my kids went to Mary Wilson's puppet shows when they were little at the library, so I'm surprised they're not doing it through Brooks.
Okay, and Charlie, and then Dinah. Charlie?
No, the only thing that I found interesting was that this song apparently it's sort of aimed at teaching young children how to learn remotely or not to be afraid of learning remotely. And I think in this pandemic, this is all new upon us. Young kids go through a lot of emotional turmoil in trying to figure out how they're going to approach this. I know because my daughter-in-law is a teacher and teaches, fourth grade students, one thing or another. So I know there's been a great deal of confusion and problems with that. So I think anything that tries to teach kids to feel that this is the new normal is helpful.
Okay, good point, Charlie. Dinah?
I think that is actually the point of this application, but the problem is that we don't know how they're going to get it, and I would not make the same assumption that you're making, Tina, that they've already talked with the school and figured it out. I would assume they've not, and I don't understand why not. If not, why not, and why they haven't collaborated with the library. And so I think they're really enthusiastic, and they're very good, and I've seen them work together actually, but I'm not sure that it's clear how they're going to get the product to the people.
Right. So here's what I'm going to say. I think lots of good questions. It sounds like we have more questions than answers. I think Charlie makes a really good point, but knowing that we've got others that are very Harwich specific, I'm going to just suggest for now that we put a 0 here, although Charlie did make a very good point, and let's come back to it, but we definitely have some Harwich, some stronger ones, I think, coming up here. All right, is everybody good with that?
Question? Yeah.
Yes, Sharon.
After you do that, I'll ask. Go ahead.
Oh, are you okay with 0, everybody, for now? We can always come back to it. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And then the next one,
ask
the question, Sharon. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, are we going to take a bathroom break or some
Actually, yeah, I was
like
thinking,
a 5-minute break?
I know we're
Oh,
live.
Sharon, we don't do that. We pee on
I know,
schedule.
teachers never go to the bathroom.
We go on schedule, whether we need to or not. We don't get to go when we want to. I move that we have a 5-minute break.
Okay, and just keep in mind, we're still recording, so I'm going to stay, I guess we can stay on, or Caleb, or anybody. So the recording is going to continue.
Okay.
Yeah,
So if
I'll
you
turn
do
my
need to
camera
go
off.
refresh yourself, go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
We can all go do that. So should we do that now? Why don't we do that now?
Okay,
Yeah.
Does that sound okay?
she's gone.
Start the clock.
All right, so it's 6:01. We're still in a live meeting, just so everybody knows. We're still in a live meeting if anybody needs to refresh themselves. And while we're doing that, for anybody staying on, any questions, since we're taking a pause here, about the grant process that I can answer?
No, but I can tell you that we're down to $6,015.
Thank you. Do we have 6,015 more to use, or is that what we've used so far? Oh, good. Okay, good. What's the total so far? Chris, what's the total we've committed to so far?
What's the what?
The total that we've committed to so far. So if we have 6,000 left, is it 3,000?
I see.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 10,000. Minus 6. Oh,
3985.
I got 3985.
Okay, perfect.
That's right.
All right. So we have right now committed to 3985. So that leaves us with 6,015. Okay,
Right.
good. Okay, that's
12
good.
left, and 12 left out of 25
Yep,
to look
and
at.
12 left. And we have, as we see, we've got 2 or 3 really strong Harwich proposals that I think are very worthy of really considering strongly. So that's good. Good. Yeah, that's really good. Any other questions, Peter or Bernadette, since you're still fairly new?
I think it's on-the-job training.
Yeah, well, it is. I remember the first year I did it, and we weren't online at that point, and I had a stack. Like the chair at that time went and printed out every application and delivered it to everybody's house. It was before we had everything online, and we had to go through and all that paper we brought to a meeting, and it was the first time, and it was on the job. I was like, oh my gosh, really trying to figure out how this worked. Yep. Oh, and you printed yours. See?
Oh, yes. I'm old-fashioned.
I wanted to do the same, but
on the side to work with. But no, I like to be able to write something down on it and be able to refer to it and put it sequentially.
Yeah. I'm working off my laptop, but I generally prefer to do that and would have. But I just didn't want to use all that paper and ink. So
I know. I'm the same way.
True. Yes. I'm making very wealthy.
Yeah, it hurts me to print all that paper out.
Well, at least I can do 2 sides.
Yeah, I would have preferred to. I just refrained from doing it.
Once you get in the swing of things, Charlie's spreadsheet will be so helpful because you can, if you make it, I make spreadsheets.
Too tiny. Yeah.
No, I can't print spreadsheets, so I got to have my own. But what I've done in the past is done my own columns of my information that's important to me. Does it take care of kids? How many people do they do? What's the, like Charlie's got on his, But
I just had to take a legal pad and write it all down. So I keep looking at notes I made.
Well, I just put another comment in. Just add another comment to the spreadsheet.
Spreadsheet was too tiny. I couldn't read it when I printed it out.
I was trying to get it on one page, Charlie, and the font.
Oh, but you can change the font in those comments.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. It seems
like everybody back.
It seems like you continued with the meeting. You've had all kinds of conversation. I don't know what.
We were just talking about it in general because it's a public meeting. I can't stop it and start it again. So we just kept conversation going and just talked about if anybody had questions about the process itself. So we're back. All right, we're back. The next one.
Taking minutes, obviously.
Oh yeah, no minutes, Dinah. I was just general questions. If any, for Peter.
All right.
And
so nothing of note, eh?
Yeah, nothing to record. Charlie.
I'll edit the spreadsheet and make that the font bigger so that people can read it without straining their eyes. That's my normal setting. So.
Can you make it 2 pages, Charlie, instead of one long one? Can you make it 2 pages?
I can make it as many pages as you want. Sure.
Like 1, 2.
I'll figure something out.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so we're back to our discussion, everybody. The next one up is Harwich.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I did hear when I was in the other room, I did hear Chris talking about how much money we have left. So I'd like to know where we're at with that.
Yeah, Chris, can you give Dinah an update?
$6,015 left.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and we've committed to $39.85 so far, Dinah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So next up is Harwich Historical Society. And this is, I'm just going to kickstart this one because I personally really like this one. It's a kind of more of a technology type of funding for those little walkie things. When you walk around, you get the history of Harwich that you can listen to. And I really liked it. So any other comments? Peter?
This is the infrastructure that we talked about earlier, I believe. And I think this fits it absolutely perfectly. And it would have broad usage multiple times.
Right.
Yep.
I agree.
Dinah?
Completely agree. I suggest we fully fund it.
Here, here.
Yep.
All right.
I agree.
Consensus to fully fund at 800.
Yep.
Fine.
All right. Wonderful. Moving on to Alzheimer's Family Support Center of Cape Cod. They tend to put a proposal in front of us every year. We do tend to fund it, sometimes in full, sometimes partially. And it is of a specific group, you know, Alzheimer's, which is very important. So I'll open it up for discussion. Questions, comments? Bernadette.
It probably is too much to ask. The only question I had, I found myself wondering, and I guess I could go to the Council on Aging or somewhere to find out. I wonder what the, you know, percentage of population in Harwich might be of people suffering from Alzheimer, or what percentage of people from Harwich are part of the family support group, or clients, or taking advantage. I'll bet it's a lot, and it's growing.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I'm going to also add, I noticed this year, which I appreciated, they already decided they were going to do it via Zoom. Usually they do a workshop of some kind in person, but I think I like the fact that they already anticipated what we were moving into with the pandemic, and went ahead and made a commitment to Zoom. Yeah. Anybody else?
I think they're a fabulous organization, and I think that I personally know a number of Harwich residents who have availed themselves of their services. So,
okay,
seems like a good thing to do.
All right. So I'm going to put forth that we fund the full 400. How does everybody feel?
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay.
That's good.
All right. The next one is Cultural Center of Cape Cod. This is another one, and this one I think Rise and Shine. So this one is another one that comes in front of us every single year. This is at-risk youth, and they tend to work, or at least in the past, they've always worked with George Sapel over at the high school, and I know a number of kids who have benefited through this. And we have historically funded it in our part. They usually ask for 1,000. If I'm recall off the top of my head, I think we usually give them like 500. I don't know that I think we might have one year given them the 1,000 that they asked for, but I think last year it was 500, Chris. But yeah, it's something, last year we gave them 500. So, and they asked, I think they asked for 1,000. Oh, no, they asked us for 500 last year. Okay. But anyway, we always give them some type of money, because I do know that some of our kids over at Monomoy High School benefit from this program. Bernadette?
The only thing is they can't this year because we can't do programs like that, which is not to say shouldn't still support a local arts center that needs support. And I don't know if other schools are working with them right now. But Emily Jutras is the person who has taken over, and actually my son-in-law, Nick Seeley, they run that program now. And it was really disheartening, but at the moment can't do it. Can't do anything like that.
Do you know, even if it's virtual, they can't participate even if it's a virtual experience?
Oh, no, it wouldn't necessarily mean they couldn't do something virtual. If Rise and Shine is doing that, it has to do with scheduling. And it has to do, you know, where that's concerned, it would have to do with the fact that their program starts at 8 in the morning. They are doing academics, and then they're going out and driving them one by one to jobs, because they can't take kids in a van anymore. That's just hopefully just a hiccup for the rest of this school year, and hopefully, we'll be back to more normal types of things like that in the future. But just to say that having knowledge of what's currently going on at the high school, they weren't able to avail themselves of it at this point.
Okay, thank you. And I have a comment, Dinah, and then I have a comment. Go ahead, Dinah.
Yeah. So we funded them this past year. Did you just look that up?
Yes, $500. Yeah.
So were they able to fulfill their their grant?
Actually, they were one of the lucky ones that kind of got in early and
Did it
did a lot.
early? Okay, so what I have to say about this one is that we have now a year from the end of January or something. So it's quite conceivable that they will have in-person possibilities before the end of this grant cycle. So I think if it's a really good program, that we should try to fund it again, maybe the same tune, half. But they're asking.
Yeah. And thank you for saying that, Dinah. That was going to be my comment too, that we're on a wonky cycle this time. So by the time our letters get out, we're probably looking sometime in February. So technically they've got a whole year.
Yep.
And I would agree with Dinah. I would personally like to at least maybe do 500 again, which is kind of what we've done consistently.
Yeah.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, they have down there supplies 755. Maybe we can push it to 755.
What?
Chris is proposing trying to match something exact. I think, and I hear what you're saying, Chris. I think I would say no. I would say that we can still do the 500 and they can put it towards supplies.
Okay.
Is what I would say. Only because I think we might have some others coming up, or at least a couple more that we might want to think about full. I think personally, I think 500 is fair, and then they could put it towards supplies. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to go 500 then with Cultural Center of Cape Cod. And that's for Rise and Shine. So the next one is Eventide Theater Company. I am going to recuse myself. I was the managing director, let me say that, because of the pandemic, I was recently furloughed. So as of January 1, I'm not the managing director, but I still do some pro bono work for the theater. So I'm going to recuse myself. And Charlie, if you could lead this discussion, I would appreciate it.
Sure. Although, may I ask, how is this presented? How do you plan on presenting, or how do they plan on presenting? I wasn't sure.
Okay, so I'm going to recuse myself, but it is in the proposal. It's on Facebook Live.
Yeah.
It's Zoom and Facebook Live.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think they already did go ahead and they've already done some of these performances. They jumped right on and began doing it. They've already got some under their belt.
Yeah, I had two questions about this. One is how they ensure that the people who are logging onto Facebook are from Harwich. How do we know that it's really serving Harwich residents? And the other is it refers alternately to performances and readings. And it looked to me like it was people reading stories as opposed to acting. And that was a little confusing because there were aspects of the application which indicated that they in the past have had fabulous sets and costumes and they do a whole show, but then this does not appear to be in that category. I'm wondering if anyone else noticed that.
I didn't.
It's so hard with everything's being virtually, like knowing who your audience is.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is. And it's hard for us to know whether our constituents are going to be served. That's the issue we have to deal with.
Well, it says here $500 for supplies. So if they're virtual, I don't know what kind of supplies they're talking.
Yeah, exactly. That was another thing I wondered about that. And in terms of supplies, that was part of it, Chris, is what I was saying is that they're talking about readings. So what did, they had talked about in past performances having supplies like costumes and set pieces, a whole show. This does not appear to be what they're proposing here. It's readings. And so then what are the supplies that they would need in order to have somebody sit in front of a camera and read for Facebook? I'm just not sure that adds up to me. Yes.
And the other thing is they didn't ask anyone else for monies.
Yeah.
No, it says they have they lumped them all together, Chris. Funding source, other LCCs, 2,300.
Oh, they
So
didn't put that on the
they
bottom.
they didn't break down who it was though, yeah. You know, the money for supplies could be for props and setting and lighting to create a more theatrical reading, but I do agree with what you're
that
saying.
seems expensive.
But
They do
like you
mention
said, Dinah, is it two readers taking voices, or is it just one person reading?
Yeah, so they do mention the specific councils.
Yeah,
Actually, they mention those. They do.
yeah.
And I think it's only 300, right? That they're asking us?
It is, yeah. And I was looking through
Yeah.
the budget, and that's less than anything specific. They're just asking
I would
for,
suggest we give the 300.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. I
Charlie,
think we can go out on a limb.
What's
you
that?
okay?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I want to know if Charlie was okay with that. Charlie? Hello?
Yes.
Are you
Yes,
okay with 300?
I'm fine with that. I lost the spreadsheet.
He's updating the spreadsheet.
Okay. All right. So everybody says yes on 300?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Tina can come back.
All right, I'm back. I could have taken a rest break, but I was afraid I would miss the next one. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to the next one, which is Cape Cod Chamber Orchestra. And this is actually a little bit of history. We did fund last year, I think we gave $500, and then the year before we denied, if anybody was there, I don't know. So we denied their application 2 years ago, but ended up funding 500. And I think everybody saw the intention for the last project from last year was to have it at the church in Harwichport, but then COVID happened and he did a virtual version, which I think we all saw, which was brilliant. I don't know if anybody saw that. So
Yeah,
I'm going to make an assumption that because he's proposing this year another virtual performance, and based on what I saw last year, it's going to be pretty incredible. And I know that they have the location, I think they've chosen, if I was reading correctly, I think it's going to be the same one they did this past year. The location is in Yarmouth.
No,
However,
No,
it's in
Heritage.
Centerville.
yeah.
was it Centerville this time?
Sandwich.
The auto
It's at
music.
the Heritage Museum.
Heritage Auto
Yeah.
Oh, it's in
Museum.
Heritage. Okay, all right,
Yeah.
so it's in Heritage for this one. Okay,
Yeah, the Dexter property.
okay, yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah, I think,
So-
okay, I got,
That
yeah.
was my only question about this. I love them. I think they do an amazing job. You know, the fact that they can't perform in Harwich right now is not their own fault. It's because of the whole COVID thing. They are a local organization. We've been supporting them, I think, trying to support them for a while. And I think they do just an amazing job. But I did have the question again about how will we be sure. Again, it's non-specific to Harwich right now because they're doing this at the Heritage Museum, and how do we know that people from Harwich are going to benefit? And so what money do we give for that?
Yep. And the only thing I'll say with, I was looking at the marketing, so marketing is $250. I do know that based on last year, I know that he sent out that video to, like, he just bombarded everybody in Harwich, the Harwich Old Timers, all of these groups within Harwich got a link to the show. So I know that I felt like he did his homework this year for this past year's grant and making sure that Harwich constituents got a copy of the video. I expect he'll do it again based on last year. So that's just something to think about, because marketing promotion, he's asking, it's $250 in the budget. So if we wanted to do anything at all, we could think about that. He's asking for 500. But I do know that he worked and made sure that video got out to lots of places. So that's just my thought.
Yeah.
Anybody have a proposal? We gave him 500 last year, which he was very happy. I would be inclined to do, wait, where is it? 400 for space rental. My only problem with that is we know that the space is the Heritage Museum in Sandwich. If it were in Harwich, I think I would say, yes, let's do that. But,
But we don't have to specify it's for space rental.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But, you know, the whole project is 7,300. So
Yep.
it's a lot of money, and Harwich has been a huge part of their base. That's
Yep.
what I would be going on.
Yep.
And I would be inclined to fully fund at 500 myself. But.
Okay.
I would favor fully funding it because I believe their technological expertise is pretty high. So streaming it to, you know, to our population would be pretty easy for anybody who, you know, has a smart TV or a computer or anything else. And it looks like a great program.
Yeah, it really is. They do an amazing job.
The filming is amazing, I have to say. And I know a few of us saw it from last year. The filming was absolutely amazing. The musicians had their masks on.
So professional. Well,
it was
music
so good.
itself.
And they had the roving camera. It was really well done.
Yeah.
All right, so $500 is what Dinah's proposing. How does everybody feel about that?
I'm
Good.
comfortable with it.
All right, so we're going to put 500 for Cape Cod Chamber Orchestra. The next one is Cape Cod Poetry Review. I think this one, isn't this one proposed? Charlie, do you have a description? For some reason, like, let me pull back up my proposal.
Well, it's a poetry review, and I believe he publishes either a booklet or so, you know, I mean, it's available to anyone who's interested, I believe.
He mentions taking
the target is students and teachers. So teachers will be provided free of charge copies of the Cape Cod Poetry Review. Now, I don't know if they can use those in a learning classroom situation as an example, but you know, it certainly is you know, a different presentation, if you will.
Okay.
It strikes me as again an outreach to Black community.
Yes.
Jamaican.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. Bernadette and then Dinah. Yep. Bernadette.
Yeah. He did specifically say under the target audience, teachers are being provided an actual copy. They're also being offered electronic galleys of poems for use in their remote learning sessions. I actually became acquainted with John. He has a studio near me in the Cultural Center, and ironically, a former student of mine is in the most recent copy of the review. I bought one from him just because I was interested, but then found one of my students was in it. I also found in looking through information on him that he and some other poets had provided the Mass Cultural Council with some really amazing curriculum and lessons for us to use in the schools. There was one on, I forget what the term is, but something about a certain kind of poetry that has to do with paintings and visual pieces, and it was very exciting to see it. So what he's looking for, and he gave us the whole breakdown there, he's looking for some of the money to help actually publish the physical book, but it seems like he's going to be providing a greater you know, opportunity through these electronic remote lessons, which particularly right now is very useful and will probably continue to be. So it did impress me as a, you know, a very worthwhile project, and he was not asking all of it from us.
Thank you. Dinah?
Yeah, I think it's unusual in terms of the things that we get applications for. It's spoken word, which is really important, and I think we want to spread our wealth around, such as it is, and also just the fact that it is reaching out to people of color and students of color, I think is really, really important. I noticed in the where it says what other organizations have involvement, the Monomoy is listed as potential involvement, whereas the others are more certain. But do you have an idea about that, Bernadette, why that would be?
I think it probably has to do with the fact that Lisa, the teacher who is noted there, is one of our teachers who's working fully remotely from home this year. We have a few faculty members. George Sapel is another one. We have 4 members of the faculty who I think for various health reasons of their own were teaching remotely full time this year. So what's happening in our schools this year is the kids are carrying, they're doing 3 classes each day, 3 classes one day, 3 different classes the next day.
Yeah, I know.
For a total of 6. And they're doing an online seminar. And so Lisa's one of those teachers who's at home. She's doing the online seminar. So she's not actively in the building carrying her regular classes. She's incredibly enthusiastic about everything, has her finger in a lot of pies. So I can't say for sure, but I'm guessing as to that is why that is a tentative commitment at this point, just because she's not in the building teaching.
It is likely that it would be taken up positively when he's able to do that. Yeah. Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
I love the project. I think it's great.
Yeah. And if I could just take this opportunity, as much as I love Monomoy, that we do have Harwich students who actually go to charter schools and choice out, you know, but they still live in Harwich and they're still Harwich kids. So I know it's mentioned, it mentioned Lighthouse and it mentioned Nauset. And so I also want to take that in consideration that they're still our kids.
Yeah. Very good point.
Yeah.
And my husband works with John Bonami, so he said he's a very talented poet and a really, really nice guy, really enthusiastic with the kids, and Reva Blau too. So we do have kids in that district.
Funding.
Okay, so the proposal is for 402?
I would suggest 400.
Okay, 400.
400.
Yeah, I understand, Chris, because it makes bookkeeping a lot easier.
That's the treasurer, right? Okay.
Hopefully they can come up with the other $2.
I'll slip $2 under his door as a donation from me.
Yeah. All right, so $400. $400. Okay. All right, the next one is the Guild of Harwich Artists.
I have to go to the bathroom on this one.
Okay, go ahead. So Chris, why don't you mute yourself? If you want, Chris. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. All right, you're going to leave. Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Guild of Harwich Artists.
Yeah.
Everybody, and this is the, I think it's the hands-on, kind of the make or take, I believe, is what
It
this
is.
is.
Right. Make it and take it.
Yep. Any comments?
Yeah, it's fabulous. I think it's amazing. I think it's Harwich. I think it's local. I think it's a lot of volunteer time and effort. And I did participate in it last year, and I just thought it was absolutely fantastic. I think it's all the things that we want to be promoting. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, Bernadette.
And also noteworthy when you read into it that the stipend is being divided among 16 to 20 potentially, and it's because otherwise they're donating their supplies and their consumables.
Absolutely.
My only other note was if it moved to Zoom, how do they do the hands-on interactive part? Would they probably, hopefully, you know, devise a curbside pickup ahead of time for people to pick up some of those same materials? I'm sure something like that could be done.
Sharon?
Or they might be able to socially distance if they set up their stations, right? I mean, with fewer people at a table.
Right. That's the way I have to do it. And like Tina said, we're talking about a long cycle here. So, you know, the hopes are it won't go to Zoom.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's, because we've got, we're going to be carrying these grants in for at least 2 months into 2022. So, we've got some time on this one. So what is the proposal here? Fully fund?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Perfect timing, Chris. All right, so we're going to fully fund for 500, everybody.
Okay.
The next one is the Harwich Town Band. 800 is the proposal, and it's for band performances. And the poor town band this year. So I'll open it up for dialogue. And it's music. Bernadette?
And it's music, and it's in support of musicians, but they're really asking in part for some equipment, for use of a better term.
Materials, yeah.
Materials, but not consumables that are going to get used up. In fact, to replace some old frayed stuff. I just know from years ago when my own children were wee little kids and we came, the thrill of grabbing a couple of things and marching around the bandstand, I still remember it as a great memory of our first years here. And, you know, those things have worn out, it sounds like. So it's not just the ephemera of the music you hear and then it's gone. It's those props that they want and the musical scores that they need.
Right. I agree. I think it's a great thing. And it is music, and it's Harwich, and it's an institution, and I think we ought to support it. And
Yep.
I like their application. I thought it was very clear about what they're going to use the money for.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Thank you. Peter?
No pun intended, but they shouldn't have to play second fiddle to Chatham.
Absolutely right. We got to dress our guys up and send them out there.
Right.
So
Okay,
is the
so-
proposal to fund this in full?
Yes.
I'd like
Okay.
to.
All right, so let's put 800. Now, I realize we have 3 more to go, but Chris, could you give us a total so far? Where we are?
1815.
All right, so we have 1815 to go?
Less? Oh,
We're
that's
doing
very,
really well, guys. Wow.
very good.
Okay.
I feel
All right.
good about it.
Yeah, that's actually great. All right, Truro Center for the Arts. This one comes in front of us every year too. And just a little bit of history. We have, as long as I've been on the council, we have denied this for the pure reason that it's always been held out in Truro, and it really has shown zero benefit to Harwich. The difference this year, I think, and it just depends on when this happens, they do, sometimes this virtual works in the favor. And I think if I read it correctly, and unless I misread something, that would be the only difference, I believe. Because did they note something? Yeah, did they say virtual? Yeah, it says virtual and possibly on campus. So it just depends on how you want to look at this, because typically we unfortunately denied it simply because it was all the way. It just, you know, we were thinking how many Harwich residents are going to go all the way out there. But,
Right.
but if they're looking virtually, we can certainly think about it a little differently.
Well, as long as they're marketing to Harwich, how do we know?
Right. Charlie?
Big marketing amount.
Charlie, you're muted.
You're on mute.
Hey, Charlie, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, they say in their comments that they have been, they have initiated virtual communication here. So obviously they're taking this to the internet.
Yep.
Right, but how does it get marketed to Harwich so Harwich people know about it?
Yeah, I don't see anything relative to that. It just says the target audience will be year-round residents of Outer and Lower Cape over the age of 60.
Well, they did say, oh, sorry. My hand's
Okay,
going
so
up.
we'll go, Sharon, Sharon, go ahead, and then we'll do Bernadette. Go ahead.
No, it just was saying like they were going to send information to the COAs in each town, and that they were going to promote it through Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. But again, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I
You're
see.
not looking for it. How would you know? You know?
Yeah.
The
Bernadette?
other-
Oh, hold on one second, Chris. Bernadette and then Chris. Go ahead, Bernadette.
And then my other question is, because it's something I'm struggling with every day, when you're doing a virtual visual or hands-on applied class, they've got materials in there, but you're not providing materials. You know, they may be, because this is how the regular classes go there, and I've done it before. And typically a lot of them do. They give you a materials list and you have to get all the supplies. And maybe that's what's happening here, is if you want to sign up for the virtual collage, mixed media offering, you've got a list ahead of time and you're going to have to order all those supplies to have them at home. You know, if people can watch the thing, but it's just a question, and it probably didn't dawn on them to explain it. This is where you wish you could ask people about these things.
Exactly. Yeah. Chris?
I was going to allude to the same thing. The supply list is in here. Is that supplies that the people will not get? The other thing is, would they then transfer this supply list to video equipment to use for their virtual? So did they think that through? And they then have to make sure that they're not doing something like pottery where people can't do it in their homes.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that can happen.
Yeah. I mean, I was hoping that we could do something virtually with them this year, but I just don't know. I am concerned about the whole supplies list. I think it's different when we were talking about stuff a little bit closer. Bernadette?
And I'm going back and looking at, describe the qualifications of the key artists. They've got a great lineup, but they're saying ceramics is taught by Chris Walt, you know, and here's his qualifications. Painting is taught by Rob DeToy. Vicky Tomeko is doing printmaking, and poetry. So they have some, it sounds like they have some specific workshops in 4 different disciplines. 3 out of the 4 require consumable materials to create visual art. And maybe it hasn't occurred to them yet. You know, I think about it all the time because I have students who are fully virtual and have been all year, and I can't make an assumption that everyone has the same range of supplies and materials and access to them at home, and it's really affected what I do and how I do it. So I'm looking at it through that lens. You know, I'm wanting to support it, and yet
Unless we assume that this grant can happen, you know, this event can happen later in the year.
Yeah, that would be it.
And then you're back to what Tina says about it's a long haul out to
Does it really
and how many Harwich people are doing it.
Yeah, it's not like it's just the next town. I mean, I think if it's just the next town over, I think, you know, we can, or even the next 2 towns, but we're talking.
It's a waste.
Yeah.
And I'm old enough to qualify, but I work full time, so I couldn't do when they offered them, I couldn't go. It was in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week.
Yeah, well, it's a stretch in terms of being in person, and then on Zoom, it's a stretch in terms of the supplies issue, right?
Yeah. So I think it's a stretch for us in Harwich to
do it. Yeah.
To get there. Yeah.
Most of their money is salary based.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that's probably for those artists, but
right.
Yeah.
But they're not of Harwich.
Yeah. Most of them are working and teaching at Fine Arts Work Center and Pam and there, and not to say that's still making a living for them, but it would be great to have more of a connection between the Lower and the Outer Cape arts, but it isn't. It doesn't seem like now is the time for us to risk it.
Right.
So 0?
0.
Yeah,
now.
especially if you never have before.
Yeah, we've not done this, and it's pretty much been because of the distance. And when you have others that are clearly right, either in our backyard or the town over.
Yeah.
All right, the next one is Teresa Martin, and while we're doing this, I'm gonna plug in my computer because my battery just alerted that I'm running low, and I don't want to disappear on all of you. So Teresa Martin is the next one, and I think her project is Arts Light. Now, this one came in front of us last year too, and we denied it, and I cannot recall why.
Okay.
But Dinah, you go ahead, and I'm going to plug in, but I'm listening. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't recall why we didn't fund it last year, but looking at it this year, the total amount is $49,000 of the project, which is pretty incredible. So it's a really broad-reaching attempt, and I applaud that in some ways. But it specifically mentions that it will be aired on Lower Cape TV, which is not a Harwich channel. And I had to check that, be sure, because they actually mention erroneously in their application that Harwich is part of that TV station, and it's not. So they then say that you can access it through YouTube, which is true, but it's not the same, and it could be more difficult for people to figure out how to get onto YouTube.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that this is really for us. So that's what I thought. Even though
Anybody else? We
300.
denied it last year. We're denying it again this year.
Well, I'm not sure it's for us, but what do other people?
Anybody else? Is everybody in agreement with the 0, or does anybody have something else to say?
Well, first go
I just
around.
wish it was part of our channel.
First go around, yeah.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So let's put a 0.
Yep.
All right, the next or the last one is Music Dance EDU. This is one that we did fund last year, and what I will say about this one is she got it done really early in January, like that first 2 weeks, and it was done. She was the first person we reimbursed.
Yeah.
And this is the chair dance, which I know she has actually done in the room. So I guess this will be did she propose virtual? I have to look at this again. Or is she going to wait?
I don't think she did. I
She's
think
going to
No.
wait this one out.
There's the backup. I thought there was a backup plan.
Okay.
it
So
says
she
the
is trying
project's
to do
going
it.
to take place at Compass Adult Day Health.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going to give you, but Diane, I saw your hand, but I just want to say this very quickly because she was the first one we reimbursed this year, and she says 100, but I will tell you it ended up only, it was 15 or 16. It was 16 because you can't get 100 people over at Compass. When I saw 100 in there last year, when I did the reimbursement for her, I actually called over to Compass just to verify because it was showing 100 people. You cannot get 100 people in that room. So I don't know why she puts 100. I think, but I did verify last year it was 16 participants.
Is she doing it more than once or just once?
It was just one time. Yeah, it was just one time. It was just one. Yeah, because I actually talked to the director over there. Sharon?
That was my one note that I wrote is, why is it so expensive? It's 1 hour, one time, and the salary is $380.
Yep.
Our lights just went off.
Oh,
Yeah, I saw that.
That's
well,
weird.
you're back on. Your lights are back on.
Chris, you didn't lose power?
No, I'm fine.
No? That's weird.
Well,
Yeah, so that was just my concern, was like, it's a 1 hour, one shot kind of thing.
Yeah. Dinah?
380.
I agree with that. Well, they're asking for 280, right?
Right.
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 And so, but I agree with that. I think, however, it's great to do hip hop dance for seniors. She's talking about a tie-in with Black History Month. I think we could give her something, not 280. That's what I would propose, is $100.
Okay, $100. The other thing I wanted to add with this particular individual is she does not live on Cape. She actually lives, I can't remember exactly where. I think it's
Randolph.
Yeah, Randolph. So, because I remember last year, so she made the trip here to do it. I think she did a couple of them, one for Harwich, and there was another cultural council that she did another one for as well.
How much did we give her last year?
We gave her, hold on a second, 280. That's what she asked for last year.
Yeah.
So we did give her the full amount.
So I would not recommend doing that again. But.
Yeah.
You had 16
15
participants for 1 hour. You were probably paying her expenses to come from Randolph, and she's another one who has blanketed every LCC. She, and again, no disrespect, people are out there farming for gigs and trying to keep themselves going, but I would agree $100 at most.
Yeah.
Chris?
She's got another music dance parent committee that is giving her $100. Asking for funding.
Yeah, I guess we can, and I will tell you this, and Bernadette is right. She does put in an application, and she's very well versed in the grant writing process. So it's definitely something. So I think if we want to do a partial grant, that's fine, and we'll just have to make it really clear that it's a partial grant. Yeah.
Because the applicant's name is Music Dance.
Exactly. Yeah. So what are your thoughts? Do you want a partial or do you want to?
I'm sorry, what did you say, Tina? We'll have to make it clear that what?
Just in my experience last year, because there were some questions when she did her reimbursement with us, and this is why I had to get on the phone to verify with Compass. She did not fulfill, when she did her event last year, she did not give us any credit, which is one of the it's a requirement. So
Yes.
I actually called Compass just to see if by chance, was it in their newsletter? I actually had to do a bit of legwork. I don't know if everybody remembers back when it was February when we met last year. And I had to call Compass just to see were we given credit. And she said she didn't think she had to do that. She just thought she had to mention the Mass Cultural Council. And I'm like, but this isn't coming directly from the state. This is a local grant, so we have to be mentioned somewhere. So I guess so. She ended up, or in their newsletter, they ended up having to just give us kind of an after the fact, Harwich Cultural Council. So and that's the reason I know so much about her grant from last year, is because I had to call. And when I called Compass, I said, "Did you get 100 people in there?" And she said, "Oh, we can't even fit that many people in here. We got 16." So this is why I know so much about this application, is because I had to call to verify if we got the credit, because she didn't submit the publicity credit. And that's a requirement when we give anybody money, is they have to acknowledge that their program was funded in part by Harwich Cultural Council.
Right. But what you were just saying, however, is you would be sure to tell her what? That's what I'm trying.
That this is a partial grant, because in my conversation with her, I think we're just going to have to be very specific. Let me put it that way. I don't want to go into the details of it, but
partial grant. Clearly, it's a partial grant because it's not what we asked for. But I'm just trying to understand your meaning in that. What does that mean to her? You're thinking that is going to mean something specific to her. What do you mean?
Yeah, she'll probably, and I don't know. I don't want to anticipate how people were going to respond to this, but some people can, and we'll talk about this here in a little bit. Anybody that we deny has a right within 2 weeks, which we're going to talk about this later, to challenge that. I have to get clarity on partial grants if one can challenge a partial grant. I have to get clarity from Ricky. I don't think you can. I don't think you can. But if you could, I would imagine that this applicant might challenge it. Anyway, but that's just my comment.
I'm just I still don't understand your meaning. I'm sorry. I just don't understand the importance of using that term partial grant.
I think I do.
If you don't give all of the money to anybody, isn't that by just its very nature a grant?
Yep.
Right.
Yep. You are correct, Bernadette.
But you're saying that you need to get clarification from Ricky. If we totally deny a grant all straight out, they can challenge it. You aren't sure if we basically throw $100 donation grant. A partial grant is still a grant, and she wouldn't be able to challenge.
Right. Yep. And it is my understanding. Yes.
Oh. Okay.
I'm. As you say this, it makes me want to say let's not at all. But I'm curious about the benefit it was to those 16 people who came.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. I think $100 is
back about that. Tina?
$100?
Yeah. I mean, I'm okay with whatever you decide. Do you want to do $100?
Tina, did you get any feedback about the quality of the experience for those 16 people?
Not direct, not from the group, no. I only spoke with the person at Compass, and
right.
Yeah, I didn't get any feedback. The person who, yeah, I don't know. This is really hard to say, but I guess it's an open meeting, and I suppose I should just say it. But when I called to verify the experience, I was also, I think that it was a little high, put it that way, because they had also contributed toward the program as well. And there was some confusion on who was paying for the program, us
Okay.
or Compass.
That's important information for us to have.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I would suggest we zero fund it then.
I'd agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
if there's a challenge, there's clearly enough here
Right.
to explain why.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. All right. So
The grand
Yep.
total, Chris.
2515,
What?
let me say that again.
2515 left.
What?
2,515 left.
Wait. Oh, I thought we had
1715.
We had less last time.
I thought we had 1815 last time.
Yeah.
Did you accidentally add instead of subtract?
Yeah.
No, what did you say, Charlie?
Well, I'm just running a total of that column,
Yeah, what did,
proposed column, and I have a total of 8285, which would leave 1715.
oh, 1715, okay, that sounds right. Okay, the last three were zeros, remember?
Right.
Right.
Oh, you're right.
So do we want to just
That's-
take a quick minute so we're accurate? Why don't we, if Charlie or Chris or anybody really, let's just take a minute to
Add
just
it up.
total everything up.
Yes.
Let's just
Why
add
don't
it
we
up.
do that from the very start? Because we want to make sure we're accurate before we go back and revise anything. We want to make sure we're not mixing something up.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've spent 8185, I guess.
8185 now?
That's
Is that
what
a
I have,
definite?
yeah. I had put in $100 for the
Oh, I see.
by accident.
Okay, so you're taking that out.
Yeah.
So let's just make sure, and this is not to doubt anybody, but just, we want to make sure. So let's have 2 or 3 of us running these numbers
Yeah,
to make sure.
I'm doing it.
Yeah.
$18.15.
Okay. Is that what is somebody else got the same number?
They're still working.
Well, I have a total, we are already committed to giving 8185, is that right?
Yep.
Correct.
8185. Chris, and that's what you had, 8185?
I have, when I subtracted it, 18.15 left.
Oh, that's what you have left. Okay, so all right, so
Right.
that matches. Okay, so you're doing it the different. All right. Okay, so that's right. All right, so we have 1815 left. Charlie, that's what you're showing also?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so here's what I'm going to ask you. So if we go back, and we can certainly look at the zeros, but I want to put a proposal on the table before we start looking at zeros. If we go back to the Cape Cod Theater Company, which is number 5, that asked for $2,000,
Yeah.
I would make a proposal that we take $1,000 and fully fund that.
I was going to say the same thing.
I'll go for that.
I was just going back to look at the application again.
Was
Which one
that
is this again?
the free
Yeah,
play?
it
The
was
free plays.
Yeah, it was the
Oh,
free
yeah.
plays. It was number 5 in the sequence. So it was the 5th one we talked about. They asked for 2,000 and we agreed on 1,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm proposing to fully fund it at 2,000, and Bernadette sounds like
Yeah.
she is agreeing.
And
Yeah,
I
so
agree
He's
as
a
well.
national playwright and he's giving the
It's-
rights
it's
to
so-
these 5
it's so-
plays.
It's so
Okay.
fun. Totally
Okay, so Dinah, you agree? Everybody agree?
Yeah, it fits all the criteria.
Yeah.
Say that again, Peter? Okay.
So
All
now we
right, so
have
we're gonna, so let's
800.
correct that and put 2,000. So make sure everybody's adjusting that, which leaves us with 815.
$815 left. Yep.
Yeah. Was there any, before we start looking at zeros, was there anything partial? What about the Cranberry Music Festival? Before we
Yeah.
start looking at zeros.
Yeah, those were my two strongest ones, and I looked and said, oh, they're two of the most expensive, but they're hometown collaborations among two or more organizations. They're reaching wide audiences, so that would have probably been my next one to say, can we give them some more?
Yeah, I would give them some more, not the whole amount left, but I would give them another, well, actually, it would be
500.
500.
The full
Right,
amount.
you could give them 500 and still have 315 left.
Yeah, I would say the full amount. That would be me.
Yeah.
Does everybody feel that way if we did that for $1,000?
Well,
Right.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so that's 1,000, and that leaves us with 315.
Yeah.
I don't know where we got that 15 from, but all right, so 315. So if you look at anything that we partially did, I would look at your partials first before we look at the zeros.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything we partially did that you want to make an adjustment on?
We've got a
There's
lot of
a-
money for the number of applicants actually this year, I would say.
Yep.
This is not as painful as usual.
Exactly. Yeah, we've had some painful times before, that's for sure.
Okay,
Well,
so
we did partially fund the dot-to-dot art
just
workshop.
about to say that, yeah.
Yeah.
What
was
about that?
300 and they wanted 750. So
Right, but what were the reasons that we only gave 300? I was trying to remember.
One of
Does
them was they
anybody
were
recall?
charging.
they were charging.
Yeah, they were charging $25 per session for the
Right.
And
kids.
space rental.
Right,
Yeah.
so they
Yeah.
not the best ones to give.
Space rental probably means she rents that cubicle in the plaza, and so really space rental means it's her rent, to pay her rent, which again is
Right, which is part of it.
permissible
Yeah.
in this year. They
That's
said
true.
that those things could be done. I just don't like the fact, I guess, that she's using that, but then also charging. I
It
feel
seems
like
like
25 per
double
session is a lot.
Little double dippy.
Okay. Was
Seems
there
like it.
anything else that was partial that we didn't, we've got Naomi Steckman and we have Kristen Stewart. I'd have to pull up their projects again.
So I have a question.
Yes, Dinah?
Do we have to give the whole 10,000 since we decided we're giving 10,000?
You know, we don't. We don't, Dinah. And thank you for reminding me. See, this is why we're all here. We need all of our brains. Bernadette?
Yeah, I wrote, I was writing everything down here. Even before you said it, I took a real quick look at everything. I'm comfortable with everything we zeroed. And then I looked at everything else, and almost everything else we fully funded, and the few that we didn't, the two that stood out were the
There
two
were
that we
reasons for that.
decided.
Yep.
And I'm forcing myself to give the rest away or justify it when I think we were really careful and deliberative about how we chose to give what we gave. And I would be really comfortable saying, assuming we do get a call tomorrow and we do have 10,000.
Yep.
I'm really happy with where we're at.
Well, also, it would mean we wouldn't have to take as much out of our gift account.
Right.
Exactly. Peter and then Chris. Peter?
Yeah, but I'd rather have something in the kitty than go over, because you don't know what the state's going to do. You've got a good idea,
Right.
but
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Chris? Thank you, Peter. Chris?
Since it's such a small amount, the 100 for root, should we do the birds, bees, and whatever the heck it is?
No.
butterflies.
Dinah's saying no. Bernadette's saying no. What does everybody else do?
I couldn't remember why we denied it, but that's such a small amount. Okay, so we're not.
He doesn't live here. He's just talking in general about New England. And
was a
he was
PowerPoint.
Chris, 90-minute PowerPoint
Oh,
presentation.
God, yeah, that's right. That was
I'm
the pretty-
sorry. I'm very sorry. I apologize to Mr. Root. I know this is an open meeting and it's recorded, but
Yeah.
that's the
Oh.
first thing that concerned me. And again, it's because everyone's trying to be creative and go out with something virtual, and we have to give people credit for that. But some things translate better than others, and there are some ways to deliver it that are better than others.
Go outdoors and look at them.
Yeah.
Go outdoors. Okay,
So
so
Charlie,
$115.
that would leave us with 315 out of the 10. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what? All right. So real quickly, the math would be 9,685.
Yep.
Would that be what we're granting?
What's
And
that?
that's fine.
I'm sorry, 9685, is that what you
That's
said?
what I have off the top of my
That's what I
head. But
have
let's
as well.
let's
Yes,
check with Charlie. Charlie.
Tina, I'm just wondering, do we have any way to track actually how the outreach worked in terms of the applicants? I mean, do we have any historic data relative to, you know, how the show was, who went, who saw it online or whatever? I mean, do we have any feedback?
Charlie, yes, and you raise a good question, Charlie. That is absolutely up to us. That there is, when I first joined the council, there was a little worksheet that people before me did do, and then at some point we just decided to not follow through with that after a while. But for a while, yes, there was a tracking sheet, and I don't know, I can't recall why we dropped the tracking sheet. I think people probably just felt it was us having to keep up with it rather than the grantee. I don't know why. Dinah?
Yeah, when I first came on, I remember proposing that we actually split things up and follow certain grants and make sure that they're really, make sure they're doing what they said they were going to do, and also for our own interest as a council to understand what it is we're really funding. And I think that that is a huge component and should be a huge component of what we do. I think what I have not pursued that because of COVID. I mean, this past year, it just threw the whole thing out of whack. But I had strongly in mind that we were going to be attending some of these events and talking to people. And I think that's absolutely essential. I really do.
Yep.
We have to come up with some methodology, I think.
Yeah, and I will answer that, Charlie. I see Sharon's hand. Let me take Sharon's question, and then I'm going to have a comment to Dinah and Charlie's statements. Go ahead, Sharon.
Well, I mean, it would be easy to create a Google form where we have the participants fill in their experience. And I could create that if you needed that. And then it logs all their answers. So.
Well, okay, so here's my answer to that. And I'm trying to remember some of the history as to maybe why this was dropped.
Okay.
I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I think that some council members prior to us felt that we were doing too much work for the grantee, that it should be, like you having to do a sheet like that, Sharon, and us having to distribute it. It's not our job. It should be the grantee. So what I was going to suggest, though, is I'm pretty certain the Mass Cultural Council does have some type of follow-up checklist or something, Charlie. And I think what I might do is ask Ricky if he can point me in the direction and we could take a look at it. And if we could put the responsibility on the grantee to give us the information rather than us going and chasing it down. I just personally don't think that's our job. I mean, if we're giving somebody money, they should be, I agree that it's good to have that information, but it really shouldn't be us having to chase it down. It shouldn't be me having to call over to Compass. How many people were there? What were the comments? It shouldn't be my job.
Yeah.
It should be the grantee. Go ahead, Charlie.
But that's exactly what prompted my question when the gal said she had 100 people or was expecting 100 people and only had 16. I mean, that kind of data is, I think, important in our decision making.
Right.
Yes, and I agree with you.
I don't know how we'd get it, to be honest with you.
So, all right, so here's what I'm going to suggest. I will reach out to Ricky. I am fairly certain that the Mass Cultural Council has a standard form that we could take a look at, and we could either adopt it or use it to create our own, and it could be a requirement, Charlie, because the next step, which I'm going to just follow back in our agenda, because I'm going to kind of go over what we've agreed to do and then talk about notifications. When we send out the grant acceptance letter, what is now going to be, should the council decide, and we can just decide that tonight if you want, it could now be an additional requirement that in order to get a reimbursement, they have to provide some type of survey sheet that we'll give them, but they have to fill it out. Because you're exactly right. I think it's helpful information, and it will have to be a requirement. So whoever's checking the grant, like when the reimbursements come in, like Chris is going to start taking it over, Chris needs to check to see, before I write off that this person's going to get reimbursed, did they give us publicity credit? Did they do this? Did they send back their check? And if all the checks are marked, then Chris does the processing for the check. Yeah. Dinah?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. When you say they, I'm thinking about, there's really two theys. There's the person who applied for the grant, and then there is are the people that they served. And I would want to know, just as you did, from Compass itself, not from the applicant, but from Compass itself, what their experience was. Did they get what they expected? And that, and that I think needs to be built into whatever tool we decide to use. And, I think it will be good to get, I love the idea that you're going to ask Ricky to see if there is some kind of already established form. And then I would be in favor of doctoring that to be sure that we're getting the information that we really are looking for.
So,
what was the experience for the people who were being provided the service, right?
That was my suggestion for that Google form, was to get their feedback to us directly, so it eliminates the person who presented. You know what I mean? Like if we're so then we can see like what their experience was.
Okay, so you were thinking that Google, well, that can work in some cases and not in others, and so requiring that from the audiences isn't necessarily.
I don't think you could, unless you gave a survey physically and they had to submit that when they wanted reimbursement.
Right. And I mean, we could ask them, we want a letter of recommendation, or we want some letter of attesting to the fact that you did this and what the experience was. Ask the constituents in some way so that we have some feedback. But the other thing, and it's not so much that it's work or that it shouldn't be done by us, I don't think, because I do think it's part of our general responsibility, is to know what kinds of services really are being provided and if they are quality. And I would be happy to go and see a show, for instance, and see if it really came off the way we had hoped it had, or an art. I mean, it's kind of what we talk about doing in the final party, in the reception, right? Is we want to see some evidence of what it was that we funded, right?
Right. So let me just say that historically, and I realize it, I keep getting reminded of what a new council we still have. Historically, with the exception of this last year, we have always been invited to whatever the project is. Like somebody has always gone.
Right.
And I actually attended a couple this summer. I went to the Chase Library book, thing on Zoom. But we've always gotten an invitation. Yes. So what we could say, Charlie, when we do the acceptance letters, that we can take a look at the way we've worded it, and if we want to add the criteria, either we attend and witness it ourselves, which I think we've historically always done, and if that's not possible, then we do need some type of survey or feedback or some verification. Is kind of, I think, what everybody's saying. Because I'm just thinking right now, let me just give you a hypothetical. Cape Cod Chamber Orchestra, just hypothetical. So they're going to do this beautiful video. How are we going to track everybody who's watched that video?
True.
I mean, how do you do that? I just don't know how you do that. So I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. And I think in this case, us watching the video is proof enough that it was done.
Right.
Yeah, so right. So, but historically, just for the record, historically, we have always either gone to a program or a project or seen an end result. And at our grant receptions, Dinah is correct, because at our grant receptions, when people stand up to talk about it, some of them have already done the project, and they might show you a nice video, or they might show you, and some of them are in the middle of the project, and they're going to talk about it and kind of show you a little bit of what's been done. And some of them haven't quite gotten to the project, and they're going to tell you what's coming up. So we kind of catch them in one of those three stages at the grant reception, typically.
Yeah. Right.
Because I don't know, like with Cape Cod Theater Company, off the top of my head, when they did Creative Movement 2 years ago, and Dinah, I think, or Chris, I can't remember, it might have been Chris. I remember at the grant reception, Tammy got up and showed us a video of the kids doing it. Like, she videoed, and we watched it up on the big screen in the library of the Cultural Center, and we could see that it was happening. And then with Creative Outlets, she brought 2 kids from Harwich to the grant reception who actually spoke about their experience. So I think that's what we're talking about, is verifying that this actually took place. So we can, rather than decide it tonight, because I know we've been here for a really long time, this might be something I put on the agenda for February. Good. And we can solidify what we want to do with this and making it a requirement in some way. And we can, I'll try to get a form from Ricky, and then between Charlie and myself, we can come up with, 3 different scenarios of how they might meet the requirement. Sound good?
Yes.
Good.
All right. So, all right, so let me just make sure to make a note of that requirement. So here's what's going to happen next, everybody. Let me just, so everybody take a look at the list, and I'm just going to read. So we're going to award Harwich Cranberry Festival. So let me just look. We're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So we have funded 16 grants. And before we can move with an acceptance letter, we have to first do the denials first. That is the process. So the process is Charlie and I will work together to get the denial letters out via email, because everything's electronic. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is that correct?
Yes.
9 denials.
It is.
Okay, so Charlie, our next step, you and me, and we already have the template that I shared with you. We're going to get the denial letters written and out. And we have to allow for 2 weeks. We have to give them from the date of that denial. They have 2 weeks to challenge it should they choose. And they have to give a compelling reason as to why they think we need to rethink it. So Charlie and I will get that done. Charlie, you and I can connect maybe early next week and start getting those denial letters out with the intention of trying to, get something, well, whatever the time next week, maybe by the 15th or so that we've got answers by the end of January, if anybody's going to challenge. So by February 1, then we should know for sure when we come back to our February meeting. If anybody has challenged it, then at our February meeting, we're going to have a reconsideration on the agenda. Does that make sense?
Say that date again, by which you and Charlie will be sending out the letters. What is the date?
So Charlie, why don't you and I agree on the 15th? Would that work for you?
Sure. Sure.
All right, so you and I, Charlie and I will connect, the 2 of us, to get together and get them written with the goal of emailing, sending them out on the 15th. That's next Friday, I think, right?
Yes.
All right, so the 15th, let's just agree that Charlie and I will get we're going to get 9 emails out on the 15th. And then they're going to have 2 weeks which will put us at the end of January. So they have until the end of January to respond. And if they don't respond or whatever they, if somebody does challenge it, they have to put in writing why we should reconsider. And if there are any reconsiderations, then in February, we're going to come back and talk about it. If there are no reconsiderations, then we're going to move ahead with our acceptance letters.
So when you say in writing, you're referring to an email is
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we'll review it. So if anybody challenges it, we're going to come back in February. We'll take a look at what they've written. What is their argument? Why do they think we should reconsider? And then we have to just have a discussion and a vote.
And what is our date? What is our date in February for meeting?
It's the second Thursday. Let me see. Does anybody have a calendar in front of them? It's the second Thursday of 11th?
February 11th.
Okay. So February 11th. And if there are no reconsiderations, then Charlie and I can set the goal of February 15th, getting out acceptance letters. And what that means is they will have 1 year from the date of the acceptance email, so February 15th, to get the project or program or event done. If there's a reconsideration and it comes back to us and we discuss it and we agree to reconsider, what we have to do is go back in to all of the numbers we've done tonight and take away from someone. Does that make sense?
Only if we agree.
Only if, yep, only if we agree.
It's not compulsory that just because someone objects that we give them money.
Yep, we have to discuss it. Yep, we have to
wouldn't
discuss
necessarily have to take it away from people though, right? We have 315 left. We could take it from that, right?
Well, that's a good question, Sharon.
Which is also our gift account. I mean, we are taking out right now $830 out of our gift account to make this 10,000 work. So if you subtract the 315, we're taking out, if we put back the 315, we're taking out 515 from the gift account.
Right.
So if we reconsider somebody, would it be easier to just take it out of the gift account?
Yeah. All right. So let me say this. This is a good question. And in a normal year, here's what I would say. Because Chris and you and I are going to find this out, and probably Charlie too, because the three of us are going to work together. The state has certain deadlines that I have to go in kind of on the back end and enter. Like after today, I have to go in to the Mass Cultural Council and I have to log that we've had this meeting. I have to log who was here. I have to, so there's some documentation I've got to do. And in a normal year, I would say that everything has to hit at the end of the year. But because we're in this kind of really weird year, I don't even know where it ends anymore. So with that being said, it is possible, Sharon, it is possible, and I'll get clarification on this, that should we get somebody requesting reconsideration, it is possible we could decide, well, we'll $315,
Right.
I mean, it is very possible. I just need to get clarification on when does this cycle actually end, because I'm really a little confused. I think it's the end. I think we pushed everything out 2 months, so I think it might be the end of February, so we might be okay. But I think we have to have a hard number as to what we're going to grant by, and I'm gonna get clarification from Ricky. So, because I have to, once I put it in to the Mass Cultural Council, because I have to report, this is what we've agreed to grant, I can't change it.
Okay.
So if I tell the Mass Cultural Council that whatever the date is, and I'll find it out from Ricky, that we have, what was our final number here? 90, what did we do? 96, I've got it here. Yeah. So if I put it in there, I can't take it away.
Right.
So I'm going to have to get clarification on when is that hard date, because I either have to go with the 9 something or we either have to agree for the 10. So I'll try to find out from Ricky on what that is, because everything has just been twisted this year.
Yeah. I have a question about the minutes, if I could ask that.
Okay. Oh, you know what? Hold on one second. This is kind of funny, the timing of this. Hold on a second. Let me just see. Did they make a decision earlier? Go ahead. I just got something from the state, and I'm just making sure. Did they get their numbers in? Go ahead and ask your question, and then I'm going to scan through. Okay, go ahead, Dinah.
For the purposes of the minutes, I am assuming that I do not go into detail about what we have provisionally funded here. Could I, however, state the amount of money that we provisionally granted and what the process is?
Yeah, what I'm going to do, Dinah, is I'll go back and look at last year's minutes to see what we recorded. I know that we didn't get into a lot of detail.
I was going to do that as well. I just thought I'd go around.
I think we can note that we agreed to give X amount of dollars. We agreed to fund 16 grants. We have 9 denials. We don't have to go in the specifics of them.
Detail. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So I just got, just sharing, I did get annual report deadline March 1st. So that's to close out our annual report, because I have a report I've got to do to the Mass Cultural Council. So I've got to find out exactly when we have to lock ourselves into whatever we're giving, which we don't have the number yet. So I'm going to get clarification on that, everybody.
That's the annual, wait a minute, that's the annual report to the Mass Council.
Yes.
Not the annual report to the selectmen.
Correct. Yes. The state has an annual report. And I know Chris and I hopped in and looked at it one time, and Charlie and I are probably going to have to hop in and take a look at it too. Okay. And whoever might be the chair, whoever agrees to do that later this year, we'll get into that back end of the Mass Cultural Council, because there is an annual report that I also have to file with the state, but it's kind of going down a kind of an automated thing on our Mass Cultural Council portal, which is a little easier. So it's not a lot of writing a report. It's just answering a lot of questions and putting numbers in and making sure all of our grants are recorded correctly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's kind of a different thing. All right. So that's the next step then. So Charlie and I, just to review, Charlie and I are going to get together next week. Charlie, we'll connect outside of this meeting and get together, the two of us. And then we will aim to get those denial letters out on the 15th. And then we will bring whatever reconsiderations back to our next meeting and have a discussion. And then we'll move ahead with acceptance letters. So any other questions about that? And then we'll also talk about adding that additional requirement. We'll talk about that next month, decide on what that is so that Charlie and I can add it into the acceptance letters. All right, and I can see folks getting tired, so let me just make sure. All right, any questions on the notification? So everybody is good. So here's what I'm going to do right now. We don't have to take a formal vote because we had pretty much consensus on the fact that that this is kind of our end result. All right. So we're going to move ahead with that, and then we'll kind of have a more formal vote next month. Once we get all the denials, we're going to have a formal vote on the actual acceptance letters. All right. Okay. All right. And then one other piece of business, the annual report to Board of Selectmen. So Dinah and I are going to work on that together. We're going to co-present this year to the annual Board of Selectmen. The other quick thing to note is that the town has that book, the annual report book. Much to my surprise, they're going to stay on track with it. And the deadline for that is the 22nd, Dinah, I think it was, which is kind of interesting because for the first time, I'm not going to be able to list the grantees because we're not going to have them finalized till February.
Tina, after I responded to your email about that, I realized that it does say in there that you can request an extension until February 1st, I think it is.
Oh.
But even then, we're not going to have them finalized.
We still would not.
Yeah, we're not, because we're not going to approve them until February because we have to wait for those denials. Yeah. So it will be for the first time, we will not have a list of our recipients in the town book.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but we'll get them recognized in a different way. So anyway, but that, yeah, there was an extension done. I think it was January 29th, and that's not going to help us on that extension anyway. Yeah. So basically, what goes in the town book is pretty much what I'm going to say to the Board of Selectmen, because the Board of Selectmen, Dinah and I, are presenting on the 25th, so they're going to get their written report, and basically what they get is going to go in the town book. On a normal year, it would have been that report plus the list of recipients, but we're not going to have that done by then. So I just wanted to report on that. Any questions or comments? I know we're getting late, and Caleb, thank you for staying with us. Any comments or questions? Very good work tonight, everybody, especially you first timers. Really good work.
Your guidance.
Yeah.
Good work. All right, so I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn, please.
I'll second.
I'll move to adjourn.
All right, so Bernadette moves to adjourn and Chris has seconded. We're going to do a roll call, and this is to adjourn tonight's meeting. Charlie? You'll have to come up and mute.
Yay.
Thank you, Peter.
Yay.
Dinah?
Yay.
Chris?
Yay.
Bernadette?
Yay.
Sharon?
Yay.
And I'm an aye, so we're unanimously adjourned at 7:28 p.m. Thank you all for your hard work tonight.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. And